Welcome back to another episode of Good Teams Win Great Teams Cover. Apologies for the unlicensed music there. We're back with our division preview series. It continues. We're on to the AFC South. This marks the 3/4 point of our division preview series. We'll just have the West to go after this. Byron, Joe, welcome. Good Teams Win Great Teams Cover AFC South preview. How are you both feeling? Ready to take a look at the AFC South?
Absolutely, yeah. Exciting division this year, I think, compared to how we felt about it last year. So, yeah, a little pick me up from the NFC South.
I was going to say, I love doing these previews just because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that team. Oh yeah, that team as well. They've had a good offseason. It's like you just forget about it from the draft and free agency, and now diving back into them, it gets you excited about these divisions where, like you said, last year,
but the Titans.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, just a reminder, Good Teams and Great Teams to Cover. Go give us a follow on Spotify. You'll be notified of new episodes when they're dropped. Also, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter/X at GTW_GTC. I'm so excited for football. I'm carrying the football around with me at the minute. It's usually what Bill Belichick makes somebody who's fumbled the ball do. Just carry the ball around the facility for the week. But no, I'm just excited for football to be back. A lot going on. We've had the first real week of pre-season. So we had the Hall of Fame game last week. We've had full round of pre-season games this week. And we've had a fair bit of news going on. Shall we start with something that broke just before we started recording? Recently acquired New York Jets linebacker / defensive end, Hassan Reddick, has asked for a trade again. I guess the Jets knew what they were getting into. Reddick left the Eagles because he wanted a new contract. They weren't willing to give him what he wanted. And we're so many months down the line, that contract issues not been resolved with the Jets. So he wants to try another team. What do we make of Hassan Reddick asking for a trade?
Jets gonna Jets, aren't they? I'm not sure what it says about Hassan Reddick, but Jets obviously didn't do the due diligence before trading for him. They let Bryce Huff leave to get a more instant impact player. And the only instant impact has been is kind of to embarrass the franchise all summer. So I don't know what they're getting a trade for him, because you're going to have to pay him. That's been made very clear by Hassan Reddick. I just think it's woeful management to get into this situation.
Yeah, I'm curious because it's still not been released who's at fault, really. It's not been said, like, did the Jets say they were going to pay him and then they haven't? Or did he say, I'm happy, like, just bring me along, and didn't make it obvious that he wanted that money before they traded for him? It's just a bad look. And for a team who feel like they're all in this year with all their players they've got and everything they've got, he was going to be one of their, star man on defense to get that line, which has been good to get them over the top of that hill to try and contend. But yeah, I have no idea how the Jets play this now, because like you said, it's who's going to want to trade for him knowing they have to pay him, and what are the Jets going to get for him? Because I can't remember, was it the second round or third round?
I think it's a third that could be a second. I don't think it'll be a second.
So, yeah. So what are the Jets going to get for him, for someone who wanted out of the Eagles and now wants out of the Jets? It's a tricky situation, and I'm guessing there'll be a few teams willing to do it, because you're always looking for a pass rusher, and there's a team like we might go talk about someone's rookie edge rusher has just got injured, so I wonder if that the Falcons, for example, might be in for that kind of player to see what they get, see what his market is.
Yeah, statement from Joe Douglas in the last few minutes, I think. We've informed Hassan that we will not trade him. He's expected to be here with his teammates and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent in our position. Our focus remains on the guys that we have here as we prepare for the regular season. He's not turned up to any side. He missed mandatory minicamp. He's missed training camp. I don't think he's actually really been there. Quite astonishing from the New York Jets, really.
Yeah, simple as that, really, I think. It's making Aaron Rodgers look more like a leader, I guess. He only turns up for most of the off-season, not all of it. So,
Well, it's interesting to see. It'd be interesting because it will all come out kind of where Reddick feels he should be paid. But he's had 27 sacks in the last 2 seasons with Philadelphia. No doubt a game wrecker and certainly someone who could positively influence that New York Jets defensive line. He's on the last year of a $45 million deal that he signed initially with the Eagles. So he's been getting paid $15 million a year. So, yeah.
I do think, just speculating, obviously, that like if he changed his tune or if he'd come not seeking a raise, then I think it would be leaked by now that he was being unprofessional, etc., etc. And like that hasn't happened. Like it's just been he just wants a raise and he won't respond until he gets one, and that's been consistent. I really think the Jets have just misplayed this. Phenomenally. Classic Jets, and also the Jets don't really have any benefit of doubt because this is how the Jets do things badly.
Yeah. Let's keep an eye on that one. Let's go into the preseason. Week 1, officially week 1 of the preseason. Mentioned kind of the Hall of Fame game. Came to a bit of an abrupt conclusion in the third quarter last week, or start of the fourth quarter, whatever it was. Had the first full round of preseason, and we're going to focus on the quarterbacks because all those quarterbacks went off the board so quickly in the draft. So we'll focus kind of on their performances, and where nowhere better to start than the man that went number 1, Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams. He started the game against the Buffalo Bills on Saturday. What did we make of what we saw of the 2 drives that Caleb Williams played?
I thought he had a couple of really good players. I think this first pass was 3rd and 13 to DJ Moore. And I thought I don't think you see too much more, really. I think you can maybe, I'm not going to say put him in a blanket for the rest of the preseason, but I don't think you need to see too much more. He looks, to me, ready to go. He, scanned the field, went from right to his left. DJ Moore was there, got open, hit him, and he's probably 3rd or 4th read. I think it's his 3rd read. And it's kind of like, okay, he's ready to go. He's NFL ready. Like, I know it's preseason, but like he's in against starters. He's doing exactly what you want him to do. He had that little good scramble to the right. I can't remember who the receiver was. Who caught it actually on the right-hand side now. Might have been a running back. But again, I thought it was a good play to like buy himself some time. He had a nice scramble up the middle. Again, when things didn't get open. I think he kind of just showed everything that you'd want him to see in his week 1 preseason. Obviously not total finished package, not perfect, but encouraging, I think, certainly.
I think with these preseason games, you just want to see that. Does he look like a quarterback? Yeah. Does it look like he can handle it? And he did. Yeah. And I think having them, them kind of moments as well, certainly shoots him up your rankings, like how the expectations for this year. It's we've seen plenty of rookie quarterbacks always not ready. And you can just tell there's just some, even in the preseason, but he just looked like a QB ready. He's ready for week 1. There's no competition. There's no worry. And I think in that game as well, I'll just give someone else a shout out, is Swift looked really good as well at running back. I think he was one of them who caught one of the scrambles, and I think it looked like that pocket collapsed and he managed to get it out for Swift, and apparently he's had a good camp as well. So certainly for fantasy wise, that could be a nice shout, Swift there.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sure, kind of a bit of what we famed for at USC. Kind of got a little bit of that in those 2 drives. Like I say, the flick to Swift, like that bit of improvisation. How mobile he is, and then kind of that deep, longer deep pass to Moore. So I thought it was a pretty solid outing. And he might be shut down for the rest of the preseason. Now that might be enough for the Bears. We might not see him in the next couple of games. We saw a little bit of Drake May, not too much. I think we saw 1 series from Drake May as the Patriots played Carolina Panthers on, I want to say that was Thursday. It was Thursday. How did you think May looked in his very limited outing?
I think he's 2 completions with dump offs, right, to running backs. Didn't see much. I think it's truthfully, I think it's maybe more an indictment of the when he said Giants, Patriots all-line, that they don't want him behind the backups there. It didn't seem much. I mean, he looked fine enough, holding his composure, holding his poise and dumping off. But, in terms of, it certainly wasn't Caleb Williams level performance, but, he's got 3 attempts, 2 completions, and like I said, I'm pretty sure they'll both dump offs to running backs coming out of the backfield. So fine enough, but not much takeaway, I don't think.
Is there pressure on him, you think, because Brissett played a little bit after and just did nothing. And then we saw Joe Milton, which is pretty cool. Him running around was really interesting.
Was fun.
Yeah. A little bit of me wants to see him a lot more because
I think he'd be like a DTR preseason superstar.
Yeah.
Never going to be an NFL player, but it's going to be fun to watch when it doesn't matter.
Hey, get me a man that can throw an orange 120 yards in the NFL preseason, and I'm happy. What a great thing to be able to do. But yeah, is there a little bit because Brissett will expect him to play a little bit more in next week probably. Mm-hmm. If he again is just terrible, is there a bit where they're kind of the pressure mounts to go, well, maybe put the kid in?
I think there'll be more pressure, but I don't think the Patriots are in a position to. I don't think there's any urgency to rush. Like, I think Brissett would have to be like you'd have to be getting outplayed by Bailey Zappi, I think. And I think it'd be a case of put Bailey Zappi in to start the season, not rush Drake May in.
Who got booed as well during the game. Well, I think they booed because they took him out, but still.
Didn't look great. Yeah, felt a bit, Bailey Zappi doesn't need booed.
But I wonder I feel like with Brissett, I think he's built up that reputation already in this league that he's going to be just a solid quarterback. So if he's not looking good in preseason, he's probably still going to start the first because he's just like that professional. Yeah. And like Byron said, it's an indictment of the actual team in general rather than the quarterback. So what it might do is, I think when we did the preview, we were like, oh, he's not going to play until week 8 to week 10. It just might be, it's actually week 4 he comes in. I think that's the big difference where it's a lot shorter time when we actually see him rather than. I'll still be surprised if he's thrown into week 1, unless he suddenly has a great rest of the preseason, which I think has been a bit up and down.
Yeah.
So I think he would have to like ball out for him to start the first week, just with that team and their schedule.
Yeah. Let's have a move on to somebody we're hopefully, certainly the Falcons will be hoping they won't have to use during the 2024 season. Michael Penix Jr. got an extended run out against the Dolphins on Friday. What do we make of Michael Penix Jr.'s appearance against the Dolphins?
It was up and down. Some of the balls were very up. And the ones, he had some nice touch on the one down the sideline. Again, I forget who the receiver was now. Might have been, is it Washington? Carlos Washington, maybe? Or Casey Washington. They've got 2 Washingtons on the roster, neither of which I really know. I think it was Casey Washington had a nice catch down the sideline on the right-hand side, which was a nice touch pass by Penix, just kind of floated it over to him. But again, for his rookie debut, I don't think it was terrible by any means, but I was glad to see him get quite a run out, though. I think he had about 15, 16 attempts. And yeah, some of them were bad, some of them were high and ugly, but my nickname in high school. But there was some signs of positivity, sure. I think you should look for him to be going in as a backup now. Taylor Heineke went 4 for 10, I think it was, for like 10, 12 yards. It was not pretty by Taylor Heineke. So I think Penix is doing himself. He probably will go in as a backup now, which, again, he'll be pushing Kirk Cousins as much as he can. I don't think they need to worry about starting him anytime soon. Or I don't think Kirk Cousins needs to worry about him taking his job anytime soon, though, because I think he did look pretty raw.
Yeah, let's move on. Number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels, made his first appearance for the Washington Commanders. Again, a brief one, but again, I think we saw a lot of Jaden Daniels' game. Rushed in for a touchdown, 3-yard touchdown, pretty much untouched. What do we make to kind of Daniels' drive with the Commanders? I nearly said the R word again. Commanders.
Well, they had absolute bomb as well down the right-hand side.
Brown.
Yeah, there was something. What I heard that basically that was a part of the script, and I think what he said is it's better to say sorry once you've done it than to not do it at all. I butchered that. I can't remember what the phrase is, but
ask for forgiveness and permission.
There you go. That's both at the same time. Yeah, and I think that's why he brings some obviously college. He's got that kind of approach, and you want some excitement. And I know we keep banging on about trying to compare him to RG3, and but that's the kind of players they are, and that's what brings excitement to Washington. And when was the last time Washington was exciting? was when it was RG3 there. So let's, I'm surprised. Like, apparently Dan Quinn really likes it. I thought like if I could choose a head coach who wouldn't like that kind of stuff, it would be Dan Quinn. But obviously, he enjoys it. So yeah, again, I think he showed promise, and I think what's really good, the ones who were like penciled to play, pending that they were going to start week 1, both look good.
Yeah,
it's a good sign that Jane Daniels did look good because he is probably going to be starting week 1. So it's exciting. I wonder if he suddenly just shoots up a few fantasy draft boards just because of the preseason, but
I hope not.
yeah,
I like getting where he is right now.
yeah.
Let's move on then to the I think the 10th overall pick, JJ McCarthy for the Minnesota Vikings. Possibly the most impressive of the rookie quarterbacks. I think he got to play in a lot more of the game than the rest of them did. JJ McCarthy was 11 for 17 for 188 yards, 2 touchdown passes and 1 interception. What do we make of the Michigan man's performance?
Again, up and down. It's bad interception, but again, more up than down than Penix, certainly. I'm really impressed with McCarthy, actually. I didn't know what to think, really. I've had a lot of dynasty leagues where he just kind of fell. I didn't trade up for him. I'd rather had Drake May, but Drake May kept going before him, which makes sense. That's why I wanted Drake May before him, but other people did also. But I ended up with him, kind of just fell onto my roster in a lot of spots, and I think he's looked really good. I think he's got a real smooth delivery, maybe more than I expected. And yeah, I think, again, we still kind of expect Sam Darnold to start the season, but I think if McCarthy ends up going like he is this preseason, I think he might start the week 1. I don't think that's really out of the range.
Yeah, I think he's had a good training camp as well. And I think it's one of them things where players backing up what's being said from the beat writers. So the fact he had a good one. I don't know if you heard Jefferson was on the commentary during the game and he was super hyped about JJ McCarthy. And I wonder if he's the same around Sam Darnold. So I think that one's a more closer where, a couple of weeks ago they said, it's going to be Darnold to start, fairly confident that. Now I'm 50-50 now that because he's playing, if he carries on playing this well, then Sam Darnold needs to play really well as well. It's not like the Brissett where I think if Brissett's just like average, he's still going to start. So it's still to make it curious. And I wonder if Paul's nervous about his JJ McCarthy take already with how this preseason's gone.
No, not all. But he did, yeah. He was very impressive, I thought. So, yeah, great news for the Vikings for sure. Just a quick one on that game that was significantly better than the regular season game we saw those two teams play towards the back end of last year. The 3-0 game, Vikings Raiders. 23-24 in this one. Raiders split time. That does seem to be a genuine battle for that QB1 position. Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. I think from what I saw, Minshew edged this out in between the two. Do we still think that's where the Raiders are going to lean to kind of the more experienced Gardner Minshew rather than rolling with Aiden O'Connell, who's changed his jersey number to number 12?
Yeah, it's AOC 12. I felt all offseason it'll be Aiden O'Connell because, he's younger. You kind of know what you get with Minshew. But the more and more we're getting into the offseason, closer we're getting to the real season, I think it'll be Minshew now. Again, training camp reports on Aiden O'Connell on both of them, to be fair, have been pretty negative, but Aiden O'Connell especially looks kind of lost, very slow to process things. Didn't have a stellar outing, obviously, so I think they're more likely to go with, it feels weird to say about Gardner Minshew, but the safer floor with Minshew. Because, again, I don't really agree. We'll get to our AFC West preview next week or the week after, but a lot of people think, Raiders can push for the playoffs again. Can they get to 9-8, 10-7? And that defense on paper, again, is really good. And, Gardner Minshew, I think, is much more likely to get you 10, 13 points and kind of keep the game close. Whereas AOC, I think, could maybe just throw games away for you. I thought all off season they'd go with the younger man and the guy who's kind of like committed to the Raiders. But again, the more reports I hear and the more I see him, I don't think Aiden O'Connell's got it. I don't think Minshew's a high-end option, but I think Aiden O'Connell's got a lot of work to do to be an NFL starter.
Yeah, and it's strange because like last year, when you think about it, he actually had a good rookie year when you think about where he went and how he played. It's like, you know what, he's had a good rookie year, but there's a lot of quarterbacks who feel like they have one good year, especially like the first one, and then it's now like, are they going to make that jump? And there's quite a few which doesn't have. Top of my head, I think like Brock Osweiler, for example, when he came in, everyone was like, wow. And if you even like Gardner Minshew, his first year, there was like for Jacksonville, it was like, oh, is this going to be the long-term starter now? But he clearly didn't make that jump and is like middle of the road kind of. Yeah. So I'm disappointed. I was hoping O'Connell would make that step in that first and second year transition, but it just doesn't seem like it's worked out.
Yeah, I think for me the beauty of Gardner Minshew is that you just don't know what you're going to get from Gardner Minshew, which is great for a viewer and a fan, not for a head coach or a team. You just don't know what you're going to get out of it. But we'll see. Maybe Minshew Mania rolls on. And what a place for it to be in Las Vegas. Let's talk about Bo Nix. Probably up there with JJ McCarthy in terms of the most impressive. Led 4 scoring drives for the Broncos in high-scoring preseason game. The Broncos beat the Colts 34-30 last night or yesterday. Nix went 15 of 21 for 125 yards and a touchdown. I think he's the last of that run of quarterbacks at the start of the first round. Probably the one with the least expectations in terms of how good he might be. He looked really good.
I think the crucial thing is, he got down to the goal line essentially. He takes control. He knows who his number one wide receiver is. One of the best weapons in football, really. Marvin Mims is open immediately. Bam, touchdown. All in. I think, Bo Nix, I think you've got to credit his game IQ there. Knows Mims is going to be open. Knows it's automatic touchdown. I think, to me, that put rocket ship.
Yeah. I do just worry that, I didn't watch the game, but I've heard some of the reports that it wasn't blown away, wow moments from him. No. It was just because when you look at the box score, Zach Wilson got 10 for 13 for 117 and got a higher rating. So I do worry, is it the system? Is he actually that higher level quarterback, or is it just, don't want to say game management, that's the wrong way to say it, but is it just, that kind of preseason where you just dunking and diving, average is 6 yards per throw?
Yeah, and Sean Payton's a friendly quarterback, quarterback-friendly coach. He makes it easy for them. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's unfair to say he's potentially a game manager. I think that's exactly what Sean Payton wants in a quarterback. Drew Brees was an incredibly accurate game manager. He could do more, but quite often he didn't do more because it's what the Sean Payton system wants you to do is, they're going to lead the league probably in running back receptions. Maybe not one running back, but they'll dump it off an awful lot. There'll be a lot of slants. And obviously they'll get Marvin Mims involved at the goal line because that's what you have to do if you have such a talent. So, but no, I thought, again, Bo Nix not spectacular, but solid enough. He didn't look like a rookie coming out cake in his pants. He looked like he'd been there before, which, again, week 1 of the preseason is about all you can ask for, really. Especially, again, I'll join the club of thinking Bo Nix was nowhere was going in the top of the first round, certainly. I didn't know if he'd go I didn't think he'd go in the first round, period. So, it's been a bit of an open competition all summer. I think more between Stidham and Bo Nix and Zach Wilson, who I didn't think would get involved really at all. But I think all three of them had medium success, I guess. And Nix had plenty of volume to go with it. So
I think he'll play the other two. Well, unless he balls out the next game, I think we'll see him and maybe a few of the rookies, maybe Penix and whatnot. But I think he's done as well as he could have done.
Excellent. I've not missed one. That was all first round quarterbacks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Also, that Broncos-Colts game saw the return of Anthony Richardson after he was knocked out the season early. We'll get to Richardson and the Colts later in the episode. One last shout. Go on.
I'd say one non-rookie quarterback that was exciting though was Jalen Wright in Miami. It looks like they've just done it again. They've just took. Maybe he's not Devon Achane, but he looks rapid and he looks like he's going to be a great fit in that Dolphins backfield immediately. So he had a real standout play, kind of went to the right, he closed up, looped all the way back round. He didn't get a touchdown. I can't remember. It didn't go for 100. Obviously, didn't go for 100. He didn't get a touchdown on it, but he got some good yardage on it on a play that was going nowhere. And again, you just kind of they've done it again.
Team full of track stars.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right.
Great till December.
Well, we'll see. And we've done our AFC East preview. Yeah. Same again for the Dolphins. last bit of news from preseason. We talked about Charlie Smith at the New Orleans Saints in our last episode, which was the NFC South, and what a moment. Good game-winning field goal right at the end of the fourth quarter to kick the Saints to victory against the Cardinals. What a great moment for the man from Mayo Bridge. Lovely to see. It was the first ever American football game he's played. So he's come from the Gaelic sports, GAA sports, and yeah, phenomenal. What a moment for Charlie.
Yeah, and we're talking about the quarterbacks looking like they belong week one, and that's about as much as you can ask for. Kicking a game winner week one is, all you can ask for and more for a kicker in week one of their rookie season. I thought it was brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's see if he can continue, and he'll no doubt get more exposure as the preseason continues, and hopefully can force his way to be on that roster. Who knows? May end up on the practice squad, but yeah. Well done, Charlie. Good work, mate. Couple of injuries to talk about. People getting banged up. Happens pre-season, training camp. Where should we start? Hollywood Brown. Let's start there. Dislocated shoulder. Doesn't need surgery. That's just come in. So might not miss as much time, potentially, as he would have done. Fantasy impact for Chiefs receivers, potentially, Byron.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of being out on Marquise Brown anyway, so I've been taking Javier Worthy ahead of Marquise Brown anyway. He's always injured, and I know you can't predict injuries, but when a player's injured every season, he's had one top 2 wide receiver season, wide receiver 23. I think he finished a few years ago with Arizona. Might move him the Ravens but I think Worthy's going to hit the ground running. I think they're going to scheme him open. And again, if Marquise Brown misses any time, all the more reason to do so. Rashee Rice, again, the suspension seems a bit unclear of what's going to happen there. But yeah, I'd certainly be bolting Worthy at my board, Rashee Rice at my board. Marquise Brown would have to fall a long way for me to take him, truthfully. It was never someone I was taking at his ADP anyway. I just don't really rate him. He's on a 1-year contract, and I think coming into league, Worthy's a better fit for the offense than Brown was. So, yeah, just push Brown down, but I still think Worthy and Rice are really good fits who are going to sadly jump up that board.
Yeah, I think Rice, I don't think any hearings in his case are scheduled till November, December. So yeah. I don't think he's going to get, I don't think he's suspensions on the table for 2024, 2025 maybe, depending how drawn out that is. But yeah, Worthy in particular, moving up a lot of people's drafts board. Rondell Moore out for the season for the Falcons, double injury below. Rondell Moore and also Braylon Trice, the rookie 3rd-round pick out of Washington. 2 areas where they can't really afford to be getting injuries for the Falcons. Joe, what do we make of this, and what do the Falcons say?
I was going to say, I know everyone's hyping the Falcons, but I always worried about their wide receiver room. I know you've got Drake London there and Pitts if he makes that jump, but, Rondell Moore was your 2-3. It was always a worry in the first place, and then to lose him on top of that, they can't really afford that. And like you said, they were hoping the edge rusher was going to come in straight away because they're kind of team what don't really have any pass rushers, and they haven't any for they're the new Jets in terms of no pass rushers. So the fact that you lose someone for the season, because I saw he got injured, I thought okay, but then the full season it's not good for them. It's and we've already done the preview, and I wasn't I wasn't all in like everyone, and I think this is just probably dampen down and see where they go from there in terms of, do they bring someone in, because there's probably still some veterans out there who are willing to take a contract there.
And I think that Rondale Moore as well. I'm not a big fan of the player, but Zach Robinson plays 3 wide receiver sets. An awful lot. He comes from the Rams who do that. Last year, under Arthur Smith, the Falcons had 19% 3 wide receivers on the field, which was a horrendously low rate in the league. I think it might have been bottom. I'm pretty sure it was bottom in the league. On Friday night, they played 3 wide receivers basically exclusively. So obviously you're going to have Drake London out there, you're going to have Darnell Mooney out there, but then
Ray McLeod's number 3 at the minute.
Ray McLeod right now. So
it was like 5-6 for the 49ers last year.
Yeah, so that's not somebody you want to be out there for 70-80% of your snaps, which is how they're going to play the wide receiver 3s this year. So maybe they'll be in the market for a veteran or a trade, somebody who gets cut or a trade. But I think they're going to have to find somebody to fill in that for Rondale Moore, because obviously he's not back this season. That's him done. So
it would be Juju from the Patriots who just released.
If you can't make it on my Patriots roster, I think you might be done. I think I'd rather drag Rondale Moore out at this point.
What with one knee?
Get him in a chair.
Well,
he's not going to lose height, is he? In a wheelchair.
Yeah, Michael Thomas is out there.
Be good for the rivalry.
You're scraping the barrel, really. But when you leave it this, like I said, I never liked that depth anyway. So then this happening, it's not good.
He was a player. Daniel Mooney, that was taking a lot in fantasy, like best ball drafts really early after Kirk Cousins signed, just because if he's fit, I think he's going to have a good season, to be fair. Again, not like a top 12 wide receiver or anything like that, but like he's going to like wide receiver 70 in drafts, wide receiver 60 earlier in the season. I think he's going to get targets, and he's had a 1,000-yard season before. He's not a total dust ball, so I kind of like Mooney in that system, just again, there's no competition.
Yeah, you look at kind of people available now: Hunter Renfrow, Michael Thomas, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, that's why I think you're waiting for cuts or to make a trade for like a second-year player who maybe hasn't quit, maybe a Treylon Burks type. Somebody that could. You're taking a shot. You're not getting. I don't think they're going to go and give up a first to get Brandon Ayuk. I don't know if they can even afford to. But like those kind of things aren't in play. I think it's going to be like we'll give you a 6th, you give us a 7th, and this player that you're going to cut. I think it's that kind of move you'd be looking at.
Yeah. Rough times for the Atlanta Falcons. And last bit of news, can we just take all microphones away from Jerry Jones, please? Just before a couple of days before the Cowboys played the Rams in their first preseason game, Jerry Jones made a comment on how he had no urgency to get an extension worked out with star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And this was driven by the fact that CeeDee Lamb's agent was apparently out in Paris to watch, attending the Olympic Games, and hence they weren't at the negotiating table. Jerry just seemed to make that worse the last night before the Rams game by almost just sort of saying they're not really missing him. By saying they do miss him not being there, but they don't miss him because he's not there competing with the rest of the guys. What do you think he's playing at? What's going through his mind here, Byron?
Do you know, I heard him speaking on this the other day. The quote that everyone's seen, there's no urgency. And then the reporter said, well, why is no urgency? He said, well, I can't really answer that. I went to high school, I went to college. I can't really answer that. He sounds like Donald Trump. He sounds like an old man who doesn't get questioned enough and is, frankly, sounds like he's fucking losing it. He's surrounded by largely yes men. He's not challenged. He doesn't want to pay money. I think the sooner Jerry Jones is out of Dallas football, the better for Dallas Cowboys, truthfully. I just don't know what's going on there. Again, you look back at the draft as well, when after day one, he just spent the entire press conference essentially talking up Jonathan Brooks, whilst his son tried to shut him the fuck up because, like, this player we have a really good note on is because we want to draft him. And then, obviously, the Panthers drafted him before Dallas could. And it just feels like the guy hasn't got a clue. I think the year before, he was trying to reveal Dallas's draft board after day one of the draft as well. Like, is there danger to it's no wonder the franchise doesn't win anything, And in response to the tweet of him saying there's no urgency, CeeDee Lamb just quote tweeted it with LOL.
Is there a risk here that this runs a lot closer to the season? And do you think CeeDee Lamb would miss games?
Well, they can't they're fine because he's on a rookie contract. I think they can basically wipe that off. So he's probably got a bit more power than someone like Reddick, who they can't do that with the new CBA. So I think it's viable. I think it doesn't even sound like they're even talking, or it's that weird one. Like, I know 49ers are now in a much better position, but it feels like at least something's happening, that they're trying to resolve something. It just feels like the Cowboys are just going to be like, well, he'll come back eventually. He'll be fine. Yeah, like Jerry. I'm not quite sure.
I think what Jerry was trying to say is that basically CeeDee Lamb wouldn't have played last night in that preseason game. So, like, it wasn't the. I think what he's referring to is like not the urgency to be there at SoFi in LA to play because he wouldn't have taken a snap.
Yeah.
Just shut up, Jerry. Stop and go and sort this out. Whether you need to get Dak done first or whatever, I don't know. But get one of these dominoes to fall, and then you can sort out the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it is just becoming extremely problematic. And it's just another circus around the Dallas Cowboys that's not needed.
Yeah. And again, like, you can be a babbling old man who nobody knows what you're talking about when you've got something to talk about. Until then, you're just a distraction. And, like, you know, like I say, CeeDee Lamb just replies with LOL. Like, it could be really easy for a lot of players to just be disrespected and be like, F this. Like, I will miss 2 games because why not? You know, and it can get ugly quickly. Again, if players feel disrespected by the process, you look at, again, Brandon Ayuk, who, again, with no updates, I think he probably will resign in it's not Diego, San Francisco. But we don't know, obviously, how it's going to play out. But he seems to have been pretty disrespected by the entire process of the 49ers not paying him what he thinks he's worth. Lamb feels like he's keeping his cards closer to his chest. But that's probably because he knows he's going to get paid one way or the other. And he's happier to wait. Or maybe he's just less emotional about it. I don't really know. But it's just such a bad look. And there's just so little need for it. You know, we've talked a lot on these off-season podcasts when talking about the Eagles and the Cowboys of just like the envy of like Howie Roseman just getting stuff done early. And it feels like every year at this point, it's like Jerry's just making some decision where you're just like, why is this being done now? Like, you know, every 2 years or 3 years when Dak's contract comes up or he's due an extension or he's due a raise, and it's like, it's always dragged out. It's like, Jerry, you're going to be fine, mate. Like, you make more money than any other franchise in basically the world. You don't need to worry about $2 million or $6 million. Like, it's going to be fine, mate. Like, don't worry about it. And shut up.
And shut up. Yeah, that's our message to Jerry Jones. Right. Let's get to the AFC South, because this is the AFC South preview episode. And we've not really talked about the division too much because we've had some news to cover there. Joe, we're starting with the Tennessee Titans first? No, we're not. Start with the Houston Texans first. And our guest that we've got coming up, yes, we are. We've got Graham Henderson, the Kilted Texan, of course we have. And so let's jump over to Graham and talk about the Houston Texans. On to the first team in our AFC South preview, and we're joined by a returning guest. We've got the Kilted Texan, Graham Henderson, joining us again. He was on back in our divisional round preview episode because that's how far his team got. It was a great season for the Texans. Graham, welcome back to Good Teams When Great Teams Cover. Thanks for joining us from your magnificent Texans hut that you've got there.
Yeah, thanks again for asking me on, guys. Always a pleasure to talk ball and other things with you. So, yeah, looking forward to this.
Good stuff. And look, what a great preview this is going to be. The Houston Texans had such a great season. So you are, again, as you can see anybody watching on YouTube, a huge Houston Texans fan. Where can kind of fans of our show follow you, and kind of what have you got coming up? I know last time we talked you were potentially going to the AFC divisional round game against the Ravens. Have you got kind of your trip booked for 2024 already?
Well, yeah, anyone can find me on Instagram on Kilted_Texan or on X at _1_Hendo. Also on Texans UK on X. I'm actually just back. I just got back last Tuesday from the Hall of Fame game. I was out in Canton for the Hall of Fame week. With stuff to do with the Texans, but also with other stuff to do with my fandom for the team. I was out there for a week, taking part in my hopeful. Well, I did make it into the PFUFA, so the Pro Football's Ultimate Fan Association. So I'd been drafted to that, and I made the cut on last Saturday. So I'm now a proud member of that organization. But it just happened to tie in with it being the Texans were in town for the Hall of Fame game and Andre's enshrinement. So that was just a great experience to have. And yeah, I'm booked up to go out in November to see Texans against the Lions, then away at Dallas, and then at home to Tennessee. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
What a great run. I'm glad to see you survived the storm in Canton that derailed the game. That looked pretty rough.
It was wild. Yeah, when it come down, you couldn't actually see the other side of the stadium. It was that heavy. We all kind of thought it might go ahead again, but the lightning wouldn't cease. So they just said, let's call it. And that's the only reason the Bears got the W that day on the Texans. We were going to give them a sound beating in the fourth.
Nice. Good luck. That's what you got to hold on to, right? But yeah, what an experience to go to the Hall of Fame game there in Canton as well. Excellent. What a great week. Well, look, we've just mentioned kind of at the start what a year it was in 2023 for the Texans. So let's get into it. You are going to be our Texans expert for this segment of the show. And we genuinely couldn't have found anyone better. So let's have a look then at a quick overview of the 2023 Texans season and what a phenomenal one it was. 10-7 record, first in the AFC South, won the division and ended up being the fourth seed in the AFC playoffs. Season with maybe lower expectations, drastically changed with rookies radicalizing the Texans. Not easy to say. With Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year and a Coach of the Year contender. First team in NFL history to win a division with a rookie head coach and quarterback. DeMeco Ryans came in from the Niners, did a fantastic job. We'll talk about CJ Stroud in a few moments. And the Texans blew out the Browns in the wild card rounds, 45-14, but divisional round was a step too far on this occasion with a 34-10 loss to the Ravens. No shame in that. The Ravens were a fantastic side last year. Graham, just give us a quick summary in a few words. How would you sum up the 2023 season for the Houston Texans?
I think it was like an outstanding season for the Texans. A lot of people didn't even have us getting 4 wins last year. Nobody really knew what CJ Stroud was going to be like out of the gates. I think in his first preseason game, he wasn't that spectacular, but that's just down to preseason. I think Ohio State quarterbacks don't really translate very well to the NFL in history. So I think that's where the stumbling block was for him. But I think all the key components and how aggressive the Texans were in the draft, moving up and taking Will Anderson on the other side of the ball, that obviously invigorated the defensive line. DeMeco Ryans coming in there, and the whole team's actually had a shift in its mentality. I think you can see that with the slight rebranding we've had this offseason, the new kits, 4 new uniforms, new helmets, new logo. I think there's just been a huge shift with the Texans, and it's all come together at the right time. Like last season seemed to be the perfect storm, and I'm just hoping that there isn't that sophomore slump from CJ or Will Anderson, but I can't see it happening from what I'm seeing out of training camp and what I've seen so far, like with CJ coming on in the starting the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers the other night. He's looking like he's started off the same way, so it should be an interesting season. But yeah, outstanding last year, totally blew everyone away. So yeah, awesome.
Was there a moment or a game or a moment in a game even where you kind of knew, okay, he's the guy, he's going to be he's going to be good? Because you look at kind of maybe it didn't quite work. It's not as yet not worked out for Bryce Young, who went number 1 Carolina. He had a rough year. Many reasons why that was the case. But was there a moment or a game that you watched and you were like, yeah, this is the guy?
Yeah, well, you got to feel sorry for Bryce Young there. He didn't have the same pieces around him that maybe CJ did. And but for me, it was the Buccaneers game. I don't know if you watched that game, and the way Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers went up at the end of the game and left like 46 seconds or something on the clock, and CJ just worked that ball down the field. Tank Dell was like very impressive in that drive. Some of his catches on the sideline to keep the clock stopped and stuff. But that kind of showed you that this team wasn't going to go away quietly. They play right up to the final whistle, and CJ's got the talent and he had the wide receivers to show that he can go up. Another time, right at the end there in the last game of the season, that bomb he threw to Nico Collins right at the start of the Colts game. I happened to be I was sitting in the stands right where Nico was when he caught it. And you were just like, that was a phenomenal throw. So yeah, but the Buccaneers game definitely was like, yeah, we could do something this season.
It's a great shootout. It's definitely one of the games of the year in the NFL in 2023 for sure. you mentioned kind of again on the other side of the ball, and maybe not just important, but very important to the Texans' success last year was Will Anderson. He seemed to grow as the season went on. What did you make of Will Anderson's rookie campaign?
Yeah, so disruptive. The sack numbers might not be there, but it's everything else that they do. Just being in the backfield, hurrying passes, making guys miss their cuts, as running backs, putting them into traffic, that disruptive play. And he got more confident, like you said, as the season went on, and he grew into that role. And these two guys have really become quick leaders in this team. Folk are really looking up to these two rookies, and everyone's buying in and getting behind them. And obviously the Texans in this offseason have added people like Danielle Hunter. And, and he's already had, 2 tackles for loss and a sack in his first 6 or 7 snaps or something. So, and Will Anderson, I don't even know, was playing on the other side there. I didn't actually notice that. I was bleary-eyed watching the game. But, yeah, those numbers, if those two guys start motoring together, we could be a pretty impressive defense this year to complement that offense. So, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no better way to lead than by example on the field, and those two guys, as did many others for the Texans last year, but certainly those two guys as rookies coming in, certainly led the way. Unbelievable turnaround and performance. And just a quick word on the D'Amico Ryans. We've got, I think it was the 5th time in NFL history that a rookie QB and a rookie head coach made the playoffs. First time, as we've mentioned, they won a division. What have D'Amico Ryans done to turn around? Because it had been a rough 2-3 years, in particular, kind of the fallout of all the Deshaun Watson stuff going on, kind of feels like not playing to win games, which isn't an indictment on the players or a coach, but just kind of that's where the team were. And how has he managed to turn it around so quickly and change that mentality?
I think it's just the energy he brings. That I think with the last 2 head coaches we had in Cully and Lovey, that older guys, I think he thought there wasn't enough juice in the building. He's brought that energy in with him. But if you remember, he used to be a captain on defense for the Texans when he played. So he's a leader of men anyway. He knows the building inside and out. He knows what is expected of you when you're a Texans player. So I think he just brought that back to the H. And he's just got all the guys fired up, and the players believe in him. And I think that's hugely important when the players believe in him, because he's been in the trenches. He's done what they are doing. They can buy into it more, and they maybe go that extra yard. So I really think he's brought a air of calmness, but a heap of energy with it.
Yeah, no, excellent first year from Ryans. I don't think anybody, even yourself, even if everything went as well as it possibly could have done, couldn't have dreamed for it to kind of turn around so quickly. So yeah, definitely credit where credit's due there to the Coach Ryans as well. Let's have a look at some off-season headlines. It's been a busy one for the Houston Texans for sure. Can you dig it? The Texans can with trade for superstar wide receiver. Will he be the same Diggs that we've seen before? Rookie quarterback contract allows for big acquisitions and contract extensions on both sides of the ball. Bobby Slowick, not so fast in leaving the Texans, in leaving Texas. That's very good, Joe. Young offensive coordinator staying with the team after a rumoured head coach candidate. That's one of the things we can see, right, with these teams where they have success, these coordinators that are an integral part that can end up leaving. So Bobby Slowick sticking around, very important. And how far can CJ Stroud and the Texans go this year? Is there a risk, Graham, that expectations might get too much for this team? We saw what they did last year. Gave the Ravens a game for a huge portion of that. One step away from the AFC Championship. Is there a risk that there might be too much expectation after maybe not as much expectation last year?
Yeah, that's the worry. Like, I've obviously spent a lot of time with some Texans fans in the last week up in Canton. There was a big contingency of Texans fans went up there, and I wouldn't be lying if I said that a lot of us are expecting to be in the bowl this year. That's the expectation. We seem to be putting something together in Houston that people want to be a part of. you can, as you said there's been big acquisitions, contract extensions. People want to stay, people want to come now. And you said earlier in the pod there that for 2 or 3 seasons, the Texans were probably a bad stay and nobody really wanted to come down. But now there's this whole new buzz. Things are happening. People want to come. People want to stay. Like Slowick, they see opportunity here in taking this team. Because, you can go and be a head coach somewhere, but you might go and be a head coach of someone that's already won the big dance. Imagine being part of the coaching network and the team that gets the first win. Like that's massive. So I worry that maybe the expectation gets a little too much. The pressure's too much. I already know the price of tickets have gone up a lot. It's harder to get tickets for the Texans games. You'll still be able to get it, but it's harder to because people are coming back now. I think NRG is going to be some of the loudest games I've seen in a lot of years this coming up season. So, I'm just hoping that there isn't that sophomore slump that I mentioned. And, honestly, if we can get that one more step and get that AFC Championship game this year, we're making progress. But if we do make it all the way, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if it's someone if this Super Bowl this year is like someone like Texans against the Lions, like two newbies, so someone's walking away with their first, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with the Super Bowl being in New Orleans, not too far as well, really, for the I suppose people in Houston to travel to get there. So it could kind of almost be kind of as close, without hosting the Super Bowl, probably the closest one to being it would definitely be closer than Dallas and other places, wouldn't it? But what a great one it could be. Diggs, let's just talk about Diggs. So Diggs, reports stay quite disruptive, maybe a bit problematic in Buffalo, kind of towards the end, maybe that last season and a half. What are you expecting out of Diggs, and how does he complement kind of the rest of that room? Because that wide receiving room's already really exciting.
I think what happened in Buffalo was Diggs is very much a player who strives on winning. So when he isn't winning, he starts to murmur. And you guys will probably know as much as me on this, that Buffalo have been there or thereabout again every season, but they have been going off the boil slightly. They're not the same Bills that was really the Chiefs' only opposition. They have gone back. They are struggling with re-signing players and contract deals and stuff like that. Whereas coming down to Houston, new opportunity, exciting young team, exciting young quarterback. He's got a complement of wide receivers that they can't double team everyone. Someone's going to get the numbers every week. Now, if you're a fantasy football person, you're probably going to stay away from sticking with one particular Texan, because I think it's going to be whoever gets free. And I know this is a silly thing to say, but usually you've got a target man in a team that's your go-to guy. I think with the Texans, it's going to be game-to-game basis. Who's the open guy? They're just because someone's going to get free. I reckon Tank's going to be pretty much looked as wide receiver one, genuinely, just because of his lightning speed and what he can do and the way he catches the ball. But Nico was impressive last season. Tank was really impressive until he went down. And then Diggs complements that hugely with what he can do as a veteran wide receiver. So I don't think he'll be too bad as long as we do win. His numbers might not be as good as they have been in previous years, but that's just because it's spreading the wealth down in Houston.
Yeah, you mentioned Tank Dell there. So we saw him in the preseason game the other night, and caught a touchdown. Hopefully, no more blocking assignments for him on the end of the O-line. Keep him out of trouble, I think. After
well, you've got to remember that he broke his leg last season, and then he got shot in the off season, and then he come back and he scored a touchdown in his first preseason game. So. And he still looks as fast. So the guy seems to be bulletproof now. So, I love Tank Dell. He's a Houston guy. He wanted to play for the team. Last season, text D'Amico saying, come get me in the draft and stuff. And he's shown he's wanting to play for the team. So, yeah.
Byron, just to bring you in, Graham touched on it there around kind of the potential Diggs impact on the wide receiver room from a fantasy perspective for the Texans. How do you see it? Are there any, is it that case that it's just going to be too spread and too difficult, and that they all collectively may have great seasons, but individually from a stats perspective may not? Or is there one that you can target that you're going to get your value out of?
I agree that it will be spread around, but I'm more of the opposite of I don't really think you can go wrong picking any one of them. I think it's probably going to hurt Dalton Schultz probably more than any of the individual ones. Tank Dell goes the cheapest in drafts, and I love Tank Dell, so I probably will end up with a lot of Tank Dell this season. And Mike Clear, ESPN, who I use for all my projection sheets, he has between Dell, Collins, and Diggs between 112 and 130 targets each. So, those are all good numbers individually. I really don't mind taking any of them really where they are. Nico Collins goes first, and I think he's top 10 too high. I think he's in that top echelon of, not your Jeffersons, Lambs, but in that next tier of receivers. I think he's as good as any, like your Jalen Waddles, Devonta Smiths. I'll take him over Chris Olave, certainly. That tier of receivers. I'm really happy. I maybe wouldn't want all three on my team, but if I end up with two of them, that'd be absolutely fine with me, because I think the Texans, like Graham does, I think Texans are going to ball out this year. I think Stroud is legit and the upper limit is there. I don't mind taking any two of them where they fall, really.
Yeah, it's a good shout. For those that are going to be drafting in the next couple of weeks, potentially before the start of the season. Some sound fantasy advice from Byron there. Graham, just a quick one on Bobby Slowick. We've touched on it in the graphic. How important was it that he stayed, and kind of what else, how much further can this offense go with him still there?
I think it's hugely important to keep the consistency. They've obviously made connections and stuff, and you work on these things like all through the off season last year into the season. Then in the new off season, then you expand even more on all the work that you've already done. So I really think it was important to keep Bobby. He got off to a bit of a slow start, I think, last year, and then people started to see what they started opening up the playbook. So I'm excited to see just how expanded the playbook will be this year. I think he's got a lot to offer us, and I'm just glad he stayed around and we just kept that consistency from last year. Yeah, so I'm happy he's back.
Good stuff, yeah. Like I say, that consistency, especially for young quarterbacks, even as good as CJ Stroud was, consistency is key. We've certainly seen a lot of, new quarterbacks come into the league and suffer, typically because when they're highly drafted, they're on not great teams and they suffer with coaching changes and changing offensive coordinator. You referenced the Tampa Bay game earlier. Paul Baker Mayfield seems to have a different offensive coordinator every single year. Even when he's staying with teams. So, the consistency is certainly really important. A lot of moves, as we've discussed, in terms of the Texans. They look like they're kind of going, setting themselves up to kind of be a contender for a few years to come yet, especially with this, while CJ Stroud is still on his rookie contract. Where would you rank the Texans within the AFC, Graham? Whereabouts do you think they fit in terms of kind of, the teams in the AFC?
I think you've got to place the Chiefs as one still. They need to be knocked off their perch. I would say just now we're probably 3 and behind the Ravens. I think seeing how we start off, it's going to be a difficult season for us because we've got quite a hard schedule. I think we've got the 4th hardest schedule in the league this year. But if we can beat them, we can beat everyone. There's no beat of fear if we can get through this tough schedule. But yeah, I'd rank us as about 3rd behind the Chiefs and the Ravens, which I think we've got them back to back this season. So that'll be key to seeing where we actually do fall in that power rankings.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of earlier it's a tough schedule, and they do seem to there's a gauntlet. They run a gauntlet throughout the season. You mentioned they're going to be playing the Chiefs, playing the Ravens. On the NFC side, play the Cowboys, play the Lions. It is a daunting schedule for the Texans for sure. But look, it's price of success. That's what happens when you win divisions. You get you play the other division winners, and it ends up being tough. So yeah, rough schedule, but certainly more up to the task now than before to handle the Houston Texans. A couple of great points I think that Joe's prepped for us around kind of the moves that the Texans made. Danielle Hunter, touched on him, mentioned him a little bit earlier on. So signing Danielle Hunter, trade of Joe Mixon, which I think is a fantastic move, I think especially for a 7th round pick, and the signing of a trade of Diggs, the Texans have become the first team in history to add players who respectively had 10 plus sacks, 1,000 plus rushing yards, and 100 plus receptions. Yeah. They're getting players in that have produced recently as well. What a great start that was. Talk to us a little bit around this Joe Mixon, because it's a point I was kind of been talking about the guys that I think this could be an unbelievable move for a pittance of a 7th round pick as it is. They had obviously Singletary last year. Mixon still produced for the Bengals last year when they were struggling. What are you expecting Joe Mixon to be able to bring to kind of this Texans offense?
Well, the thing was last season we were still unsure about who our RB1 was after Pierce having such a breakout season, and then the motor Singletary, he had such a good showing that and Pierce had that slump, so he got pushed up to RB1. He did a really good job for us. I'd have been happy to keep him on, but then when Mixon become available, it was like, oh, here we go. We're pulling in a real talent here as well. He probably will be RB1. He's got to be RB1. So yeah, I'm expecting him to build on Singletary's success of last year, be that security blanket or running back if you need to go to that, because I think we're going to be pretty much a pass-heavy team, or we'll maybe set up the play actions using Mixon as well as he should be used. And if you think about it as well, we signed up Cam Akers as well, so that could potentially be RB2, depending if he beats out Pierce. So, and he's a high producer as well, and by all accounts, he's been doing really well in training camp. So, yeah, the running back room's getting stacked as well. So, yeah, it's just a really exciting time, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Certainly, one of those teams to be excited. One of the teams to continue to be excited about in the NFL. Let's have a look at the moves. We've mentioned some of them, so we won't go through them all. So sorry, Joe, if I ruined your slide. But we've mentioned Stefon Diggs by the trade. Joe Mixon, we've just talked about there. Danielle Hunter, how important is that pass rush going to be again for the Texans, and especially to take down Lamar, to take down Mahomes?
Yeah, it's massive. Like, Grenard had a decent season for us last year, but he had injuries. Every season I've seen him play, he's been banged up for a few games here and there, and it kind of takes out his momentum. But Danielle Hunter, what did he have last year? Was it like 16 or 18 sacks or something last year? High producing numbers. And then you put him on the opposite side from Will Anderson, young motor, strong guy. That's hugely important to us, and that allows our backs to be more aggressive in what they do. The linebackers can be more aggressive. We've got some of the best backs in the league just now. With Singletary, he's been again, by all accounts in training camp, he's been balling out. He's been picking CJ Stroud left, right, and center, but that's maybe because they're not getting to fully use the running backs in training camp yet, how they want to. But he's also carried on from last year. So yeah, it's massive. It's really big that we are being able to pull in these top class stars now, whereas we were kind of just milling about in the mid-table, mid-card players, the 1-year deals and stuff. But we're really signing guys up to the future of this organization now, and we're looking to build something for the next few years and not just on a year-to-year basis now.
Speaking of which, let's have a look at the draft then. Looking to the future, so the trade active with the Vikings, especially before trade for the Texans. So we saw them pick up 42. I suppose who's going to kind of make a big impact out of this draft class, Graham, for the Texans in 2024?
Lassiter obviously is going to make a big move because he was our highest pick. Obviously they've seen something in him that was above and beyond. Cade Stover, I've really liked what he's been doing as tight end. Brevin Jordan may move on next year, and we've got Dalton Schultz signed up, but Cade Stover's been playing well. He's caught a few good passes in the last 2 games that we've played in. Hill, I think he'll be he'll probably be a special teams contributor. He's fast. I think he runs the 40 and 4.41 or something. So got a bit of speed there that can be harnessed for the future. But yeah, I think probably there. Well, Kalen Bullock as well, I believe he's been balling out in training camp. So these guys are all putting their names forward. You know, Jalen Peatley didn't have a very good season last year, not like his first season. So like Bullock and that, they'll be sensing that, and they'll be wanting to push themselves into the forefront here. So I think our draft was very. They utilised it very well. They didn't overreach. Didn't feel they had to settle for best man available that they thought at the time. A clever draft. Didn't really give up too much. Didn't really lose too much. So yeah, I was happy with that. And obviously the backs are going to be important because that is an area I think that as good as it was, it still needed a bit of strengthening. So yeah, I'm glad to see them in there.
Good stuff. How far do you think the Texans can go? You alluded to it earlier on, but how far? What would be a good season this year for the Houston Texans?
I think a good season would be the championship game, the AFC championship game. Great season would be Carl McNair and CJ Stroud standing with that Vince Lombardi trophy, you know, as I'm wiping the tears from my eyes from the stands. You know, that'll be a great year. But yeah, if we can just make it to that first dance, you know, we've been so close so many times, you know, blowing that big lead against Kansas when we should have done better against the Ravens last year, but they kind of had our number. So it would be great to get that far, but obviously you want to go all the way.
Yeah, like I say, you know, if it's one step further than last year, then that's been progress, and you know, all those pieces aren't going away anytime soon. So yeah, then we're going to be in a position where the Texans are going to be knocking on, you know, going to be in and around this championship for a while to come yet. Let's have a look at some odds then. The line for the Texans, Vegas seems to think 9.5 wins. That's the line, so 9 or 10 wins. Over under. Where's your feeling, Graham? Do you think the Texans are going to kind of get to 10 or more wins?
Yeah, I think we're going to. I generally think we could maybe push 12 this year. Yeah, 12 wins.
12 wins. You mentioned it's a very, very tough schedule, but yeah. That have to be a good run again. To get to 12, that have to be like 5 or to run the table in the division, maybe.
Yeah, I think we're too much for our division. Just putting it out there just now. I think the AFC South. It isn't a lock-up because it is still a competitive division, but I think we're going to get the 5 wins. I don't see anyone being good enough to match us this year in that division.
Yeah, there's an you get some slightly better odds. The other line available on Bet365 is over 10.5, which is just plus 125. So it's a little bit better than even money. I'm sure you'll get better odds for over 11.5 as well. Byron, what's your thoughts on the line? How many wins have you got the Texans at?
More than 9.5. I have them at 14-3. Truthfully, I think there could be 13-4, but yeah.
Graham, you cursed. What was it you the Bengals you had or the Chargers you had at 15-2?
I think it was 14-3 for the Bengals, and I think the Chargers were 12 or 13 wins.
You had somebody at 15 wins that was ridiculous last year in the previews. I'm sure it was the Chargers.
It must have been the Bengals, because I had the Chiefs as number 1 seed. So I had Chiefs as winning the division, so I don't think it could have been the Chargers. It could have been the Bengals, though. And yeah, I might well be too high on the Texans, but yeah, I like betting over 12.5 wins at 9-2 or plus 450. Yeah, it is a tough schedule, but I think they're a brilliantly coached team. I think they're really, really well set up for success. So, yeah, I don't really have any qualms with taking them at there.
Yeah, I've got the Texans at 9 wins, but still winning the division. I think it's just a tough schedule. You'll win some of those games, you'll lose some of those games. But I also think the other 3, we'll get onto it. I don't think the other 3 teams are great. So, yeah, I've certainly got the Texans back into the playoffs and another division win anyway. Speaking of which, what are the odds about, Joe, for the division win? That'll be the next thing on the screen. Division win is just better than even money. Yeah, so heavily favoured to win the AFC South. And again, I think you're right, Graham. I think they're a step ahead for sure of the other teams in the AFC South. 8-1 to win the AFC. 16-1. Graham, do you fancy a punt on the Texans at 16-1 to win it all?
Oh yeah, that sounds all right. I like it when they're higher numbers though, because you get more back. But yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that number any day.
I think they were like 25s at the start of the off season, and then
that's still low for
excited.
them. They're normally 50 or above.
Yeah. Actually, that's not improved right as history's gone. But yeah, I don't mind backing them at 16. I think I got them at 25s in just after the Super Bowl. Because again, like I don't say it's easy, but like when you have someone like CJ Stroud, a quarterback who has that rookie season, it's really easy to just say like, well, the sky's the limit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unicorn. They don't come along very often.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen.
I think as well, if you look at last season, there was a heap of games that was just one score.
Yeah.
So really it could have went either way, like we were just discussing. So those numbers could easily be the other way. We could have been even higher last year if we just managed to stick it out in a couple of games.
Yeah. Level the Texans 16-1, same as the Cowboys. I think they're about 6th, 7th favourites to win the Super Bowl. Could be great value there at 16-1. Even better value if you're on them at 25-1 like Byron is. Graham, that brings us to the end of our look at the Houston Texans. Thank you ever so much for joining us and coming back on. Hopefully we'll get you on mid-season. Maybe we can even get you on when you're out in Houston later in the season. That would be ace.
Or New Orleans.
Or New Orleans if you're there for the Super Bowl, potentially. But yeah, it would be ace to have you on while you're out there. Just a reminder, where can we catch you and where can we catch the UK Texans?
So you can get me on Instagram at Kilted_Texan, and you can also get me on X at @the_1 numeral _ handle, and also on Texans UK on X. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Good stuff. Whether you're a Texans fan or not, go give Graham a follow. Go give the UK Texans a follow and support the guys in the NFL UK community. Thanks for coming on, Graham. We're going to jump across and chat to a guest representing the Indianapolis Colts. I say guest, I think it's guests. We've got the guys from the 1st and 56th and Indianapolis Colts podcast. Not easy for me to say. And we're going to chat through the Indianapolis Colts chances in 2024. Thanks again to Graham Henderson there, the Kilted Texan, for sharing his views on the Houston Texans for 2024. We move straight into the Indianapolis Colts. We've got a returning face, the Good Teams Win, Great Teams cover. Rondo from the First and 56th podcast, an Indianapolis Colts podcast, was on our live stream for the NFL Draft, returning to a normal recorded episode. There'll be a lot more relaxing this time. Rondo, how are you doing? And welcome back to the show.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me on. Doing good, feeling great. Football around the corner, so that's always a good sign. But yeah, I'm ready. Let's talk about it.
We are right there, so close now. Tell us, before we get into the Colts preview, which is, of course, why you're here, you're our Indianapolis Colts expert for this episode. Tell us about the 1st and 56th podcast then. How did you get started and where can we catch you guys?
Well, absolutely. So it's myself, my co-host Anthony Gulick, and Marcus Martin. Anyone ever listen to a podcast, you can find us. So, Spotify, Buzzsprout, iTunes podcasts, Stitcher, at First 56, like name says. YouTube, we are a part of the Sideline Sports organization, so you can catch us on their YouTube channel. Also, give them a follow on Twitter as well. But in terms of our video production, that's always going to be on Sideline Sports. The way it got started, actually, me and Gulick have been together for, this will be our 4th season together. Originally branded under a different name. We started the First 56 2 years ago. We were with a different company, moved around a lot of places, but settled in with Sideline Sports. First 56 got created. We picked up Marcus in the middle of, not last season, the season before last season is when we added Marcus to the team. So me, Gulick, and Marcus for about a year and a half, but me and Gulick for about 4 years strong.
Nice. Look, we're a big advocate of three-person booth. It works. That's what we're here. We're here at Good Teams and Great Teams cover as well. What have you got coming up then on 1st and 56 as we head to the start of the season?
We haven't produced anything yet. Obviously, we just had our first preseason game. Second game's coming in about a week. Typically, how we started off is that every year for the past 7 years, one of my good friends. He tailgates every single Colts game. He always appears on our first episode of the season. He displays obviously the news of the tailgate, and we typically go through the schedule prediction, we go through the roster. But that's the next episode that's going to be coming up. That should be in roughly about a week and a half.
Excellent. Well, we'll get you warmed up for that, Rondo, because that's kind of what we're going to do here on our Indianapolis Colts preview. So let's get into it. Let's have a look first at a bit of an overview how 2023 went, because that's how we got here. Season of change for the Indianapolis Colts. I think all in all, good season across the board. 9-8, just missed out on winning the division in that Week 18 decider with the Houston Texans. Ended up finishing third in the division. Division was up for grabs, as we just mentioned, in Week 18 versus the Texan. Could say that Goodson buckled under the pressure with a drop pass on 4th and 1 that led to a 23-19 loss to the Texans. Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida, showed flashes and star quality, but a season-ending injury in Week 4 led to Minshew mania. A step forward, a 5-win improvement on 2022 with an exciting head coach and a young team. Rondo, first of all, how would you sum up how 2023 went for the Colts?
Honestly, if you look at it, way better than expected. Because, on our show before season started, with the healthy Richardson, we only predicted 4 to 5 wins. So to be, like you said, a play away from making the playoffs with your backup quarterback, absolutely, we were way ahead of schedule. We honestly weren't expecting much. Again, new head coach, obviously a new team, really a new sideline in general in terms of the staff. So we really weren't expecting much coming into that season. So to get the result that we did, yeah, it was disheartening in how it ended. But when you look at it, dialing back in from the beginning of that season, exceeded expectations.
I think that's that's a great summary of it, and exciting place to be. I think for the Indianapolis Colts right now, with kind of how 2023 went. And just a quick one on Anthony Richardson. We saw we didn't see much of him, and I think the worry that he might get hurt happened. I think from what we saw, maybe Week 1, Week 2, we were like, oh, he could get hurt here with kind of his style and the way he was playing. But what did you make of what you saw out of Andy Richardson early in 2023?
Honestly, I like in the small sample size that it was, I liked what I saw. Obviously, it left you wanting more. But I coined it on our show back when we drafted him. This is probably the most excitement we've had around this team since drafting Andrew Luck. It's been that much of a nightmare for us with the quarterback carousel, because before Anthony Richardson took a snap, he was starting quarterback number 7 in a span of 7 years. So the fact that we finally got a guy who should be putting a stopgap to that revolving door was absolutely exciting. Obviously his physical features were crazy. You're looking at potentially like another version of Cam Newton. So getting that type of guy, especially when you look around the rest of the league and how it's a young arms race. We were one of the last ones to really get a quarterback who was in his 20s. So now we've got a guy who only barely turned 21 and should be on the roster for the foreseeable future. Now we can compete with the rest of these young arms in the AFC. Absolutely exciting. You bring up the injury thing. It brought flashbacks to number 12, obviously seeing him go down with injury and eventually not playing. So obviously he needs to change that up, but the small 4 games that we did get him, it left us wanting more.
Yeah, you've certainly seen this movie before, I think. Yeah. And is that what do you think? Is there a worry that Andy Richardson has to change something that might then also lose an edge that he has because of that way how he is so mobile, he's such a powerful runner, but that then opens him up to the risk of the hits and the injuries. Where's the balance with him, do you think, Rondo?
I wouldn't even say it's a worry. It's really just kind of, and go back to his debut against the Jaguars where his conversation with Trevor Lawrence was just like, you got to protect yourself. It's really as simple as stop taking hits and just get down. You're not in college anymore, where in college, he could probably get away with that because he was probably the biggest person on the field. At the NFL, it said everybody's big, everybody's fast. You might be big for a quarterback, but you're not the biggest person on the field anymore. Heck, just on our team, he's not even the biggest person on our team. We've got some nice defensive linemen who would dwarf him in terms of size. So it's really just a matter of, as cliche as it is, learning how to slide, learning how to get down, or even just get out of bounds. He took a lot of unnecessary hits. I think coaching staff probably drilled that in his head enough that we need you for the future, not just one game.
Yeah, it's a long season. It's a 17-game season after all. Just a quick shout out then to Coach Shane Steichen, obviously come across from Philadelphia, 22 to, for the start of 2023 season. What did he do? From your perspective, Brandon, what did Shane Steichen do to change this team? Because like I say, it was such a big turnaround in the space of a year.
I think for starters, it's the play calling. Compared with him, what we got from Reich, you saw a clear difference in what the style was going to be, because a lot of the questions we had with Frank Reich was that what's the identity of this team? Because we never really necessarily had an answer to that question. And sure, you could have made excuses the fact that he had a different quarterback for 5 years running, so he could never actually run a same type of style. But with Shane Steichen, we got a consistent that we're going to pass, we're going to run in situation. And Shane Steichen, we're going to be aggressive. With Frank Reich and going forward, you never knew. With Shane Steichen, we can kind of predict what exactly is going to happen in terms of at least the play calling. Frank Reich was all over the place. There's a lot of dysfunction. As we saw in the tail end of his last season, he lost the locker room. We don't see that so far with Shane Steichen. It remains to be seen what's going to happen later. But him, I think he's the perfect coach to help develop Richardson, because we saw what he did with Jalen Hurts in Philly.
Yeah. Good chat. Like I say, just a real impressive first year. Byron, kind of again, I think we're all in agreement. It was a great year. Do you think Steichen can then push this team on in 2024 for the Colts, Byron?
Absolutely, yeah. Jonathan Taylor hopefully fit and active for a full season as well. Put him next to Anthony Richardson, and good luck. Would be my advice to opposing defenses. Steichen, I think, has blossomed his resume. Obviously, in comparison to Frank Reich, it's night and day. But also, you compare the Colts last season with Philadelphia last season, and Philadelphia the season before with Philadelphia last season. And again, man, I'm sure Jalen Hurts would love to have Shane Steichen back in the building as OC. I think Shane Steichen, he was very unlucky not to win Coach of the Year last year for what he did with what he had. Is hugely impressive. And I don't want to say I view the Colts as Super Bowl contenders, but I think they're certainly playoff contenders. And, finishing with less than a 500 record, I think would be a disappointment. So I think 9-8 should be their floor going into the season. And I kind of see, again, maybe not the sky's the limit, but certainly somewhere near the sky is the limit for them, even just this year. I think very exciting 2024 ahead.
Let's have a look at some of those off-season headlines then. Richardson's back from injury, chomping at the bit. We saw him a bit in the preseason game last night against Denver. It was last night, wasn't it? Yeah, yesterday against Denver. But fully fit Taylor too, as Byron just mentioned. Is there an exciting offense that awaits? Drafted the first defensive player off the board in the 2024 NFL draft. Maybe surprised that was the case when he got to the Colts at 15. Latu to bolster a defensive line that had the most sacks in franchise history last year. Colts are not horsing around, locked down key players in Pittman, Buckner, and Stewart. And can one of the highest rated offensive lines protect Anthony better? Don't want to see the new plan B. So plan B last year was Gardner Minshew. This year, it's Joe Flacco in it as a backup quarterback. And interesting, and we'll start there with Joe Flacco. So if Joe Flacco sees the field, obviously something's gone wrong because Anthony Richardson's got banged up again. Two very different quarterbacks. I think the one thing that they share, Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco, is that they would not be afraid to push the ball down the field. Are there things that Richardson can take on and learn from Flacco, Rondo?
Well, absolutely. Just because, Flacco's been a long time he's won his Super Bowl. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So that alone, he can teach a lot. He's been a long time starter in this league. And he's also, I don't know how much he helped or how much he did develop, but he was there with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. So, Anthony Richardson's play style, you'd argue, is very similar to that. So he's kind of seen that guy. So no doubt that Richardson can learn a lot from Flacco. He is a vet, but I'm with you. He should not touch a field unless we're blowing someone out.
Yeah. Only time, yeah. That's it. Although he did show last year, if he does have to play, he's still got a little bit left. Still got a little bit left to give. Do you think the Colts have done enough this offseason on the offensive side of the ball? Obviously, Adonai Mitchell was drafted out of Texas. Seeing the extension to Pittman. and Josh Downs could maybe take a step. Do you think there's enough there?
Offensively, I think we'll be all right. The Adonai Mitchell pick, ironically enough, I actually wasn't necessarily a fan of it. My co-hosts were. I didn't like him out of college, but putting him in our offense, he's not going to be expected to do much. I think he can be a nice compliment to Pittman, a nice compliment to Downs. And he's essentially, according to practice right now, he's actively competing with Pierce right now for the wide receiver 2 job. So if he proves me wrong, I'll gladly take it. The O-line has kind of forever been the strength of this team for like the past 6-7 years. And as for the healthy Jonathan Taylor, let us not forget that last season, for a long time period, Zach Moss was leading the league in rushing yards, or at least he was top 5. So, and Zach Moss is nice. Jonathan Taylor is miles and away better.
Absolutely. I mean, will we see Taylor back to his form of old, where led the league in rushing? Quick question about my Pittman one for you, Byron. Do you see Pittman as a true number 1 wide receiver, or like a top wide receiver 2? It's a harsh question.
Yeah, I think he's probably more like a top wide receiver 2, but that's really good. He's very consistent. I'm really upset, to be fair, that Josh Downs got injured. I know it's not who you're asking about, but I think they really paired up well together. And I hate those high ankle sprains because they just linger. And I was really hoping for a big season for Josh Downs. But yeah, I think Pittman's going to get, pick a high number of targets. I think it could well be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy again this year. He's not your Justin Jefferson or Chase or CeeDee Lamb mold of pure dominant 1-1 wide receivers. But I think in terms of like your second tier, I think he's in that mold, certainly. And he's done nothing but really impress in Indy. He never really gets the respect he deserves, I don't think. Like I said, I don't think he's a true number 1, but he's so consistent. And he's done it with, like Rondo says, 8 different quarterbacks, 50 different quarterbacks, an awful lot of them. So, yeah, I think he's in for another good fantasy season. And, yeah, I'm just a bit sad that I don't think Josh Downs is going to now with that ankle sprain. I think it's going to linger too long. But, yeah, I think Pittman will be a good one.
You mentioned Pittman's production there with 8 quarterbacks or 50 quarterbacks. I think there was some of those quarterbacks that were close to 50. Phil Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz.
Well, he might fit well with Joe Flacco then.
He might do well with Joe Flacco.
He just bonds with the old guys.
Yeah, if it comes to it. Where would you see, Rondo, what's the biggest question mark against this Colts team? Where do you think kind of maybe their weakest area is?
It's defensively in the secondary. It's a position group that has long been scrutinized, and Ballard's taking a lot of heat for it from obviously a lot of Colts fans. We're kind of including that as well. I mean, first and foremost is that it's the safety room. You're essentially bringing the band back together, and the band last year wasn't that great. The lone bright spot was probably Julian Blackmon, but after that, there's a lot of questions. Rodney Thomas was kind of off and on. Nick Cross started off pretty hot, faltered late, became a great special teamer, but now he's going to be expected to take major snaps actually with the main defense. And obviously, the not the rumors, but Justin Simmons is sitting out there. I've been off the one saying that, like, I don't think it's going to happen. But on the flip side of that, you can't look at our secondary room and say that we're set. And you go to the corners. I was a big defender of Dallas Flowers. Obviously, he didn't play last year, tearing the ACL. It missed out. He was supposed to be CB1 last year for us. Coming into this year with him and Juju Brent's Kenny Moore, I think it's decent, but it could be better. In terms of the free agent corner market, I don't necessarily know who's out there, but with the safety market, you've got to add someone to that, because obviously, knock on wood, if one of them goes down with injury, then we're screwed.
Yeah, I think he does look a bit light, and there's opportunity. There's some names still out there, I guess, but I think there'll be more as we get obviously close to the season once we see some cuts. But I guess it's where seeing the value, because I guess there's a lot of people out there that might be asking for a lot of money. Xavier Howard springs to mind. JC Jackson maybe, although he might be done. There are some vets. Patrick Peterson maybe, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Gilmore seems to be going to the Vikings, doesn't he? I think that seems almost done. So yeah, be interesting to see if they do pick up anyone. I'm sure they will do. Let's have a look at some of those key moves and free agency and draft picks. We've talked about Latu a little bit already. We talked about Joe Flacco kind of being the key free agency addition. Better plan B maybe. Raekwon Davis. We mentioned Minshew gone. He's at the Raiders fighting for that job. Zach Moss, Isaiah McKenzie, and then the draft class. interesting one. Love the Latu pick. Well, we talked about it a little bit on draft night, but now it's kind of a few months down the line. What do you make of it, Rondo?
Again, I was ecstatic on draft night and seeing him in live action, seeing him in practice, even more ecstatic to that point. He's going to absolutely dominate. Like we said in our podcast, the fact that he's playing on the outside with Buckner and Grove in the middle, he's going to have one of the easiest times as a rookie coming into this league because he should, for the most part, be facing one-on-ones. So he's not going to necessarily even be asked to do much. And then again, like I said, you look at this tape, you look at his motor, and we've been seeing it practice in training camp already, and he's demolishing. And he has the luxury of being able to go up against one of the better guards in the league in Quentin Nelson. That's going to, I would think, give him the best kind of test of what to expect from other teams in the league. So extremely sky expectations for him, but I think he's going to deliver.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's right there. I think he's second favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year award, plus 500 or 5-1. Right there, kind of with Dallas Turner at the head of that market. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And that line was very productive. We mentioned it, 51 sacks last year, the most in franchise history. So it's a line that produces already. You throw in somebody that talented to the mix, the only way is up for those numbers. You'd like to think. Anyone from that, just putting Latu to one side. Anyone else from that draft class that you think is going to make like a real instant impact that's going to maybe stand out?
So there's two guys. One guy's is a 5th round pick, Anthony Gould. He's most likely going to become our return specialist. Like currently on the depth chart right now, you have Josh Downs and Dallas Flowers listed there. I think he's going to take over for both of them just so that those two individuals can focus on their main core objectives. Anthony Gould was a return specialist when he was in college. So really, if anything, that's kind of the only way he's really going to make this team. He's not going to make it as just a regular receiver. The top 4, even top 5 receivers on the depth chart, I want to say, are pretty set. So, and not only that, mentioned with the new kickoff rules, that's where he's really going to come into play also. As a speedster, he's one of those guys where he's getting the ball in space. And again, he's been doing it in college.
Yeah, I think he took all 5 kickoff returns in the game against Denver yesterday, and a punt return as well. So yeah, seems to be getting plenty of work. He's having plenty of opportunity across the preseason to, make that role his for sure. Who do you think potentially then on the teams overall? I think a lot of attention, right, so is going to be on Anthony Richardson. Put Anthony Richardson to one side. Who's going to be kind of maybe an X factor for the Colts in 2024?
X factor, I'm going to say, let's go defensive. I'm going to say it's going to be a guy who I've been big on. It's going to be EJ Speed. Linebacker starts opposing of Zaire Franklin. Zaire gets a lot of attention. Zaire is the captain. EJ Speed is essentially, like I said last year, he's vaulted into he's going to be the new Shaq Leonard. He takes Shaq Leonard's position in the lineup. We saw how explosive Shaq was. Obviously, injuries and whatnot led to the end of his Colts career, maybe even his NFL career. EJ Speed, on the day he was drafted, I said that he was a mini Darius Leonard. He's proven that in college. I've been beating the drum for him a long time. Finally, the last couple of years, people got to see that I wasn't crazy and knew what I was talking about. So this year being day 1 starter from the get-go, he's going to show out and impress a lot of people. And any of you Dynasty IDP players, I've been telling you to grab him early, so you better get him now.
It's a good tip there, EJ Speed there. Make sure you go grab him. And we're going to finish off this portion of the Colts preview by looking at the odds and the lines for the Indianapolis Colts. Ahead, we are a gambling show at heart. That's what we do and what we do best most of the time. So let's have a look at what we've got for the Colts. Vegas has the line 8.5, so it's looking at 8 or 9 wins for the Colts. Rondo, first of all, do you think that's a fair line for where the Colts are, 8.5 wins?
Yeah, it's pretty fair. I think on our early prediction show, we fell around 11 to 12 wins. But even if that falters, I think we easily hit the over on that by getting 9.
9, yeah. And do you think that'll be enough to make the playoffs? Because 9-8 wasn't enough to make the playoffs last year. If you get 9 wins, do you think that's enough to get in with how the AFC is?
It's gonna depend on when those 9 wins are. Our division last year, I coined our division as the worst division of football. I don't think we're the worst division of football anymore, but it's still only really a 2-head race, I would say, between us and the Texans. The Jaguars and the Titans are roughly irrelevant. You can kind of argue who's more ready than the other one. But similar to last year, I think it's going to fall again down to us and the Texans. And I think with a healthy AR, this should be the year where we obviously reclaim our AFC dominance. So I'm going to circle that. Yes, I'm making the playoffs solely just because we're taking a division.
Nice. Plus 140 for the Colts to make the playoffs, just over even money. I think the thing that stands out for me about the Colts is the finish they've got. I think it's a real nice finish. From week 13 onwards, New England by Denver, Tennessee, Giants, Jaguars to finish. I think that's a real good time to get hot and reel off some wins, and that might be enough to kind of get towards those double-digit wins. Byron, where do you see how many wins have you got the Colts at?
I am at 10 wins, 10-7. So obviously I'm going over the 8.5, and I have them making the playoffs as well. So I love that, plus money on making the playoffs. I do have the Texans winning the division still at plus 320, but I do like that plus 320 as a bet because, I don't think it's crazy to think they'll win the division. But yeah, I'd rather bet them make the playoffs. I think they will. I just don't think they'll win the division, but I do like the price.
I need to have my second run at it, but I only had the Colts at 6 wins, which I think is too low. I think the schedule is nice. I think the benefit of the Jaguars splitting the Colts and Texans was that just the benefit of a slightly easier schedule. Some, big ones to pencil in there, potentially home to Chicago. Obviously Tennessee, we kind of don't think are going to be great. Vikings might struggle, and then that finish: Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jaguars is a nice finish. So I think I'm a little bit too low on the Colts at 6 wins, 6-11. Division winners plus 320, so 3-1. I think that's fantastic value. Like I say, I've given potentially, Texans and Colts seem to be the two teams that are far away. Conference winners 28-1 or plus 2,800, and Super Bowl winner plus 6,000 or 60-1. Rondo, what would be a good season for the Indianapolis Colts in 2024?
Good season would be hosting a playoff game this year. I would say our ceiling is a conference game appearance, but no doubt the bar has to be not just making the postseason, but hosting a playoff game. I don't care how, but make that happen.
Make that happen. For sure. Get Lucas Oil Stadium full for a playoff game. That'll be one hell of a place to be. Rondo, that brings us to the end of our Indianapolis Colts preview. Thanks ever so much for jumping on. Just give us a reminder again on where we can catch the First and 56 podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you're following us on Twitter at First 56. But again, anywhere and ever you listen to a podcast. So iTunes podcast, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Stitcher. We have Facebook page as well. But also for our video content, you want to catch us on YouTube on the Sideline Sports channel.
Excellent. We need to get across. We're only on Spotify. We need to get across all of the other podcast networks as well to make sure we're there. But thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll get you back on during the season, kind of check in how the Colts are doing. It'd be great to have you back on. But yes, we move into our next team preview. We're going to preview the Jacksonville Jaguars next. So here we are with our Jacksonville preview. We're on to the Jacksonville Jaguars portion of our AFC South season preview episode, and we are joined by an extremely special guest. In one of our previous episodes, we were joined by the New York Jets International Fan of the Year in Fraser. We've now got the Jacksonville Jaguars International Fan of the Year for 2023. We're joined by none other than Captain Duval, joining us from right outside Everbank Stadium, live in Jacksonville. What a view. First of all, Captain, welcome to the show. How are you doing? How is it out in sunny Jacksonville?
It's very warm and very nice, very humid, and it's wonderful. It's like having a big hug 24 hours a day.
Excellent. It looks amazing. You are at the iconic statue where 20-odd years ago, that 9-year-old kid got his head stuck in the Jaguars' mouth. Yeah. Some say put the curse on the Jaguars from that very moment, but you're there right now. You are in Jacksonville for a very special reason, a feat that you've recently completed this week. Share with us kind of what you've been up to in Jacksonville.
Well, I wanted to do some charity work, and that's what the Captain's all about. There's a local charity in Jacksonville that I'm very attached with, and it's called Viva Victory, and they're a cancer charity. I'm a cancer survivor. I do some at home, of course, as well, like Wessex and Macmillan. But while I'm here, I thought I'd reach out to, V for Victory it's called, and they support families who are suffering with cancer. And to support them, jumped out of an aeroplane a couple of days ago at 13,500 feet. The most terrifying experience of my life, but I managed to do it. So, yeah.
Amazing. Good on you. Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen, if you're not following Captain Duval, go follow the Captain's Instagram. There's some great videos on there kind of from the build up to it. And yeah, it looked terrifying, but it also looked like a great time.
Yeah, it was terrifying. I mean, the worst time was it's a tiny little airplane. I'm sure it's a model airplane, not a real airplane. But there's a little tiny step, and you've actually got to step out of the plane into the jet stream, or the whatever you call it, and then off you go. So it's just having the confidence of literally stepping out onto just above the wheel arch and just off you go. So
excellent. Where can we go? Where can we donate? Because obviously it's such a great cause. Where can we find the link? Where's the page for us to be able to kind of go donate if we want to support?
If you go to my Instagram page, Captain Duval, the first thing you'll see is the donating part of it. So yeah, please do. Please, anything would be appreciated. I have already donated to the British Army Benevolent Fund. So and now it's on a local charity here in Jacksonville.
Amazing. We'll make sure we send the link out when the episode drops. But yeah, go follow Captain Duval. So I think you might say it's at Captain_Duval DU.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the one. Good stuff. Make sure you go, because what a great cause and what a feat to do it just for jumping out of the plane. And we are grateful that you survived the ordeal, because you're going to talk to us about the Jacksonville Jaguars today. You've been out there. I think you went to one of the preseason game, the first preseason game the other day. Been to some of the training camp as well.
One of the training camps, before it got stopped early, thunderstorm coming in. So went to a preseason game. Flew in on the morning of Saturday. And then the preseason game that I went to was Saturday evening. It was a night game, so that was a bit of a relief. So, and it was a good turnout. It's only preseason. It doesn't really count and all that. But it's against the Chiefs, and the important thing was that the first quarter essentially had the starters on. So, it was good to see. It was an education. Yeah, it was a really good thing to see, and it was a good turnout here as well.
Excellent, good stuff. And how were the Jags looking? How did they look through that game? How were you feeling about kind of how the Jaguars have done so far?
You know what? I am quietly excited. I thought I'd pay particular attention to the offensive line, because with the offensive line can't really do anything in training camp and everything. I mean, until they've actually got an enemy as such in front of them, they can't really go for it and really start to gel as a team. So I think that's ongoing progress, like anything, like any team. If I'm a firm believer that if the offensive line fails, then it doesn't matter how good the rest of the team is. You're not gonna win. So because of the quarterback being pressured so much. But yeah, so I was trying to pay attention to the offensive line, and that was looking pretty good. Of course, we've got a new addition there, which we can cover at some point if you want, Mitch Morse. So it's going to be an exciting thing to see him and see what he can add to the existing offensive line. But I was also paying particular attention to the defensive backs. I was curious because they've got a new defensive coordinator, they've got a new defensive back coach who goes way back. I mean, his name is Chris Richard. And he goes way back to Seahawks, and he was instrumental, and that's what they at least say, instrumental in the Legion of Boom with the likes of Sherman and everything like that. So I was thinking, I wonder how that's going to pan out. And also the Jags so far, they've had the DEs this year starting in the 3-point stance, whereas last year they were starting in the 2-point, so I'm told. So I think so basically what I'm saying is that there's a kind of hint at much more aggression on the defense. And I think that I'm hoping that the defensive secondary are going to basically be a bit more handsy, a bit more intimidating, and so that's what I'm excited to see. I mean, I've got a personal kind of little, not a connection, but wanting of a better word. I mean, I announced DeAndre Prince, cornerback, at the draft, and so I can't help but be interested in how he's going to do. So it was great to see him, number 24, on the field, and which surprised me. I thought, well, he's, a lot of people just saying that he's somebody that's for the future and just somebody that's, to build on and everything. But there he was. He was on, he was on a few special teams, and he was on a few plays, and he was getting in on the tackles and a few assists and things. So we'll have to see. I'm here again this weekend against the Bucks, and we'll have to see how that continues. So yeah.
What a great point, because you were in, as you mentioned, you had the honour of announcing what turned out to be the Jacksonville Jaguars' 5th round draft pick. I think it was number 153. You were there at the draft in Detroit. We got to talk to Fraser a couple of months ago about his experience. You met for I was there. He had the honour of doing it for the Jets.
Fraser's a nice bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. Top guy, and he's been a great guest on when he's been on with us. And how was that experience in Detroit, kind of being at the draft, being able to kind of go up there, announce the draft pick, because there was 200,000 people there at the draft. It was a crazy event.
Yeah, all Lions fans, Sadly, there really weren't enough Jags fans there, but it was an incredible experience, and to be invited there and to announce a pick as well. Yeah, it was a life event, basically. Terrifying. I mean, when they come and get you, I mean, I don't know what Fraser said, but you're sent into a little room behind, and there's a guy sat at the computer, and of course it's day 3, so things are moving very, very quickly, and you don't know, and nobody knows who you're going to get and who to announce. And what the thing for me was, I didn't know who I was getting, of course, but I just hoped I could get somebody where I can pronounce their name.
Yes.
That was a worry. So, the postcard is given to me and they say, right, 20 seconds, you're on. And luckily it was DeAndre Prince. I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness. So,
Yeah, what an experience. And how has it been kind of being, you obviously had the honour of being the Jacksonville Jaguars International Fan of the Year for 2023. How's that been? What's changed for the captain in terms of having this honour bestowed upon him?
Well, I think it's all about profile and doing something positive with it. I mean, of course, any presence online, you're going to get a degree of love, you're going to get a degree of hate. So you just got to basically, know which ones to embrace and which ones just to forget. But I think for me, it's been just really good for me to give me a platform, really, to do something good, to spread some love, and to just get some charitable work done. So, and that's what he's about. It's just about raising money for people who are in need. So yeah, that's the main focus for me.
Yeah, it's amazing, fantastic work that you've been doing. So yeah, all the props and like I say, what a positive thing, and what a great way to use that fantastic honour that's been bestowed upon you.
It takes me 3 hours on the day to get into this, so it is a bit of a commitment, and it takes me a good hour and a half to get out of it as well, because it's all latex, glue, and goodness knows what else. So I'm becoming a dab hand at eye makeup and stuff. It's crazy.
Nice. Well, let's talk about it then just quickly before we'll jump into the full preview for the Jaguars in a second. How did Captain Duval come to be then? Kind of, you mentioned kind of how long it takes to get in the gear.
Right, well, basically, I've been a fan of the NFL forever. And did I really be a fan of any specific teams? Not really. I mean, the good thing about being a UK fan is you can dip your toe in wherever you like and take it back out again. You can be who. It's not as if it's your local team. It's not here in Jacksonville. I'm sure if you weren't a Jacksonville fan and a fan of somebody else, I'm sure you'll be lynched. But say in England, we don't have such necessary loyalties. But so yeah, I've been a fan of the NFL. I first started kind of being a fan, but not completely devoted to the Jags. In about 2019, I first saw them 2019, Wembley or wherever it was, against the Texans. And then, so as I say, though, I wasn't a devoted fan. I was just kind of following more the game than the Jags. But and then it continued, and that's so it went on. But when it came to the announcement that the Jags were doing 2 games back to back, I thought, oh, hang on a minute. I mean, these guys deserve to be what's the word? They deserve to be. I've had a mental block. They deserve to be just followed, and so that's what I decided to do. I thought, right, well, never mind what I've done before and everything. I'm going to give the Jags my all, and think of a way of being a very obvious Jags fan, but also a very obvious British Jags fan, and then that's how he came to be. So, got dressed in a morning suit, bowler hat instead of a top hat, because I didn't worry about the fans behind me, and I thought I'd do a latex mask, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's incredible. I can't remember which one of the 2 games. So I went to the Wembley game last year, the Falcons game at Wembley. I can't remember if it was the Wembley game or the other game at Tottenham, where I'd first seen you pop up, and I was like, we've got to speak to that. We have to speak to that guy. So I'm glad we've been able to do it. Yeah,
just the national anthem. It just picked me up on the cameras, and then the Kelsey brothers are talking about me, and the next thing I know, I'm getting invited from Amazon, Prime, to the New Orleans game. So crazy,
amazing. What kind of a 12 months? Not even 12 months, I guess, since that.
Yeah, and the good thing is, and I would recommend it, even though it's a lot of hassle. Anybody can do it. I mean, I haven't done anything that anybody else can't do. So, so it's a bit of time and a bit of patience. But I would say you represent your team no matter who they are, and dress crazy. Go for it.
Yeah, amazing. It is absolutely incredible. And just to let you know, I know you mentioned the Kelsey brothers might have been mentioned you on their podcast. Sadly, we don't have quite as big of an audience as the New Heights podcast, but we're working on it. Yeah,
always growing. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. Well, let's get into the Jaguars preview. So where you are, you might find it difficult to see it on the screen, but this is for the benefit of our YouTube viewers.
Sure.
Let's have a look at the Jags then for 2024. Real exciting year for the Jaguars. Just have a quick review of 2023. Ended up finishing 9-8, runners up in the AFC South. We're flying.
Everything was going so well until the Bengals game.
Yeah, they were flying.
They were, I think, 8-3 up to that point. And then Trevor got injured, and that was it. It was good night after that, really. I think the mistake that they made, personally, this is my opinion, and that's all it is. I mean, I don't know much, but they had a reasonable backup, CJ, and not CJ Stroud, but
that would have been better.
But I think, in my opinion, and I said at the time, that if they'd have played him and rested Trevor, who's to know where it would have gone? But they insisted on, or Trevor maybe insisted on playing, even though he was injured, and it just didn't work. I mean, and that's the rest. That's it. So, and they only for the rest of that season, they only won, I think, one more game. So, as you say, 9-8 at the end, which is still a win. It's still a winning season, so got to be positive and all that. But so yeah,
we were having conversations. I know, kind of end of November, start of December, going, the Jags are 8-3. Their running looks pretty good. Could we be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars as the number 1 seed of the AFC? And then, it all went wrong from there. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence playing hurt, and it showed, didn't it? It did show kind of that he was injured.
A big fumble.
Yeah. Tough for him. Very tough for him playing hurt. But, that's what these guys do, right? They want to, unless they absolutely cannot play, they're going to push through.
I think at the time, he had never missed a game, I think. So I think so he was keen, I think, just to not to do that. I think It's like, I think Russell Wilson, when he hurt his thumb, whenever that was, I mean, it was the same kind of situation with him. He didn't want to miss a game, but you just need to think of the team, I think, and just the bigger picture. So
it's tough, and it was just so difficult down the stretch. Some more plus points though from the year. Josh Allen, he's had a name change. We'll talk about that, but he had a career. He had a career year. He's been rewarded with a monthly contract, and we saw Trayvon Walker, the number one pick in 2022, take a big leap in 2023. How would you sum up if I was just asked you to sum up 2023 in a few short words? How would you describe the year that was 2023?
I would say it started and continued halfway through with so much potential. The defense was so very strong. Trevor Lawrence was looking awesome. And so many weapons. But then, for one reason or another, mainly the injury of the quarterback, it just all went just out the window, really. So, I mean, the defense still did well, but you know what it's like. The defense can only keep a good, strong offense. If they're on, if they're getting, if the Jags offense are on and just do a 3 and out, and the defense is just back on again, I mean, it just wears them down. They're a great defense, and they're even better now. But you need to give them a rest. You need to give them some time to sit down and recover. In between plays.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like I say, such a good promising start. Let's have a look at just kind of the headlines that have happened in Jacksonville so far. I think the biggest one for sure, Trevor Lawrence cashes in for 5 years, $275 million, joint highest paid quarterback in the NFL. First of all, Captain, do you think that's deserved for what Lawrence has done so far?
Well, I mean, yes, I think he deserves it. And I don't think, it doesn't affect his gameplay because he's still trying just as hard now as he was then. So he's just happier and he feels more settled and secure. He's going to be here for a number of years to just build on. So I suppose that gives him the quiet confidence. But in terms of gameplay, I think he's still playing to the same standard. And the same, he's still given 110% now, but then again, he was then. So, yeah.
So it just feels like teams are kind of tied down. If they have one of these guys, one of these quarterbacks, you just have to pay him, and you just have to pay him that top of the market.
Yeah.
The Cowboys are about to go through it with that.
I think, Mr. Khan, we're seeing lots of changes. We're seeing growth. There's a lot of money being put into the Jags, and I think they are a team that's worth keeping an eye on. If you're new to the game or if you're thinking about looking into the game, then I think the Jags is definitely worth becoming, following, because not only there's lots going on, there's lots of money being put into them, a new stadium, lots of money being paid to these major players, but they come to London every year and they will continue to come to London every year. And that means that if you're a fan, your team, you can come and see him every year. So that's good. You don't have to come all the way out here. Not that it's a hard tip, but yeah.
Yes, well, it definitely looks like a fantastic place to be. So yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, not only Trevor Lawrence, in terms of the extensions, of course we've got Campbell, number 32 cornerback. He's a major player to be taken consideration for fantasy and the like. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about fantasy football and things like that, so you'll have to forgive my ignorance if it comes to it. But
we have our resident fantasy expert here, and it's not me, so don't worry about that, Captain. Josh Hines Allen signed as well, a big contract extension.
He is a major force. He's a major force, and again, he's so fired up. He's playing to the same standard and everything as he was last year, but you can just sense that he's happier with the people that are around him. He's got kind of more confidence. I think it just comes across that he's just happier with the whole defense and on how it's looking. The guys around him. I think it's going to be an exciting year for the Jags.
And do you feel like with Josh Hines Allen, he doesn't tend to be discussed in the same time as a Myles Garrett, as a TJ Watt, as a Micah Parsons now. Do you feel like he's a little bit disrespected in the NFL in terms of he's not talked about with those guys?
I don't think it's a Josh thing. It's not all about 41. It's about the Jags. I think you'll find that the Jags are written off. The Jags are kind of just brushed under the carpet every time.
Yeah.
The Jags historically are just not taken seriously. So I don't think, even if it's a commentator, if you're watching the Jags game, it's not a case of Josh Hines Allen being kind of just forgotten about and just, whether it's disrespected or not. But it's the whole Jags franchise. People just haven't kind of taken them seriously. But honestly, watch this space. I think up and coming, I think is the word. Yeah. There's also Foye as well. Remember, Foye Aluakin, he's a major force. So he's had a big extension as well. So
they're making the right moves, aren't they? Tying the key pieces down, which is important. Some movement that they made. Calvin Ridley came in last year with big expectations. It didn't quite work out, but in a wide receiver room, he's been replaced with Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. in the draft.
Yeah. And on the game, I think Brian is somebody that I think, he's only a rookie. I know he's the Jags' first pick, but I say only a rookie. That's unfair. But when you see him, when I saw him, if you watch that game for the preseason game, he was just exuding confidence. He is happy where he is, and it shows. He's just in the right place at the right time, and he's gonna be definitely somebody to watch. He's slotted straight in. He's got these other huge weapons and these other huge famous names, that he's playing alongside, and and it's as if he's been there for years. So he's definitely an exciting player.
Yeah, really exciting.
One of the more exciting from the draft. Yeah. But in terms of losses, you say Calvin Ridley, that was felt here, I think, and considering he's gone to the Titans as well, that hurts even more, really. But there are some good, as you say, some good replacements. Gabe Davis, again, very strong runner. He doesn't look as if he's actually, I don't know his specifications, I don't know how tall he is. He's not the tallest, but he's a powerhouse, so he's definitely one to watch. And there's also that they seem to be putting a lot into number 12, Duvernay. He's an acquisition, and he again is another one to be watched. So
real exciting room. I think maybe before that was what was hoping last year that Calvin Ridley was going to bring. It just didn't quite work out. But with Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. is a huge deep threat. Really interesting to see how they make it work. I think they're really setting up Trevor Lawrence for success. I suppose the other bit you mentioned, you talked about a little bit earlier, new defensive coordinator. We've seen some veteran additions to that defense as well. And you mentioned the new stadium. I'll say the new stadium, or the reworking of the stadium and the general area around, the stadium to create kind of the stadium of the future. I was going to ask you, and you seem to think that, but do you think that will have an impact on the Jags' relationship with the UK and London having this, or do you feel
it's going to help? It's going to help the Jags. Whether it'll affect, I think it certainly helps them over here. I don't know if it'll make that much of a difference to us in London. They need it here, honestly. I'm very, very fortunate, and I admit, I'm very quick to admit that I'm very lucky to be sat here now, and not that the NFL have got anything to do with it. This has been entirely under my own steam. But the stadium in Jacksonville is, it's bloody hot here. It is really hot, and it's an open stadium. And it's not the best looking stadium, honestly. You can't really see much there, but it looks like it's been kind of added to over the years. Yeah. And it's just not a custom built. It's not. It's just an old. It's a bit tired, like me. And it just needs a replacement. So it'll be good for the fans in the hot summer's days, and it'll mean that they will hopefully get a full house each time. Whereas there's always empty seats here, certainly in the summer, because it's just too hot.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, I can imagine. But it's like I said, I think the stadium's roughly, I think it's about 30 years old now. So yeah, maybe it's time to kind of have a regrade for sure. Let's have a look.
Everbank's not a pretty stadium. It's functional, put it that way.
And I think that will change. We've seen what these new stadiums are now across the NFL. It will, when it gets done, it will look incredible. No doubt. Let's just have a quick chat of the rest of the moves. We've mentioned most of them. Mitch Morse was one you wanted to talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
That O-line being real important, as you alluded to earlier. What are you hoping to see from the offensive line for the Jags in 24?
Well, I just want to see just a brick wall. I just want to see Trevor given as much time as he needs, to do his thing. It's the offensive line is everything. So. But they've got some good players there. Sheriff, and So, we'll see. We'll see how they do.
Excellent. The other piece I wanted to ask was, we know you are going to be linked forever with DeAndre Prince, having announced his draft picks. Yeah, you will be forever now linked hand in hand with DeAndre Prince, which is a really cool thing. Who else out of that draft class do you think can make a big splash for the Jaguars in 2024?
Well, it's early days yet, isn't it? But I think Miles Cole, DE, number 59, and there's a lot of talk even now of Mason Smith. I think he's a defensive tackle, number 94, I think. But as time, of course. I mean, honestly, elephant in the room. The most important person to mention is Cam Little. Mm-hmm. Without a shadow of a doubt, and I would say equal to Byron. He looks as if he's 12 years old. He really, really does. But he's got a leg on him, and he's going to be, easy even now. From the outset, from the last game, he was awesome. Even practice, he was kicking, 50 plus, so I think the two main takes for me for draft, ignoring DeAndre for the minute, because it's early days for him, but of course, Byron and Cam Little, those two. And then we'll see about the others. It's just a really sad state of affairs that in a matter of weeks, they're going to essentially all the teams are going to be halved, aren't they, in quantity? So let's just see who makes it.
Yeah, well,
but those two, Cam and Byron, they'll be there. They'll be there for the duration.
Excellent. Yeah, be interesting to see. Very interesting draft class, but certainly tidied up some areas where they needed a bit of help and should set them up moving forward. We're going to finish off this portion of our episode by having a quick look at the Jags' future prospects in terms of the odds and see where Las Vegas thinks they are. So the bookies seem to think the Jaguars will be somewhere around 8 or 9 wins. How many wins do you think the Jaguars can get in 2024, Captain?
They're going to beat last year. So I'm going to say I'm going to be optimistic, ever the optimist. I'm really excited for them, and I think they're going to basically easily be in double figures. And so let's just say 12.
12 wins, 12 and 5. Would that be enough to win the division? 12,
but,
do you think?
But thinking about it, game 1 is against the Dolphins. You think, so the first few games are a bit tough if you look at the itinerary. But hey, got to be in it to win it. Just I'm going to be the optimist, and never mind the torpedoes full speed ahead. That's what I say.
Excellent, cool. Well, that would probably, if the Jaguars did get to 12 wins, that would probably be enough to win the divisions. Based on that, I'm assuming then you think the Jaguars are definitely going to be in the playoffs come January.
Yeah, they're going to win their division. They're going to beat the Texans. I mean, I'm sick of hearing how good CJ Stroud is. So and they're the other teams are coming up. The other teams are getting better in the division. So, but the Jags will come through in the end.
Excellent, good stuff. It should be such a really interesting division. We obviously how good the Texans were last year. The Colts are real interesting as well.
They're getting good.
Yeah, Titans maybe not so much, but the Jaguars are right there as well.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see. It'll be fascinating. It really is going to be interesting to watch. As ever, the Jags are the underdogs. Nobody thinks they're going to do anything. Nobody thinks they're going to win. Nobody thinks they're going to achieve, but they will.
Excellent. Well, look, the Jaguars. If people are want to take your advice and think, yeah, the Jaguars are going to win the division, you can get them at 5-2, so 2.5 to 1. Make some good money there on the Jaguars to win the division, to win the whole AFC, to be the representatives of the AFC in the Super Bowl. They're 22 to 1, and to win the whole damn thing and win the Super Bowl, they're 45 to 1. That seems good value.
Yeah, it's got to be worth a punt, isn't it?
Yeah, 45 to 1. That is fantastic value on the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially if they're going to be winning 12 games like the captain's predicting.
Yeah, we'll see. But as I say, be best to be optimist, and just wish them their very best. So
absolutely. Well, Captain Duval, it's been a pleasure. Just one last time, because I think we're going to hammer it when we get the episode out. Where can people go donate to the wonderful cause that you're raising money for?
Do a search on Instagram for Captain Duval, and you'll see me. I mean, I'm quite an obvious presence there, but the important thing to key in is the 3 U's. I think, Captain Duval, and you'll find me. And lots of videos on there. You'll see me falling out of an aeroplane, and amongst other things.
Excellent. Well, every little helps. So anything you can contribute towards the cause, I'm sure will be greatly appreciated, everyone. So go find Captain Duval over on Instagram and, donate to the cause, because I think it's very, very worthwhile. Captain Duval, we are hopeful we're going to get to see you and meet you. We're going to be attending the Bears-Jaguars game at Tottenham. So we're absolutely going to come find you somewhere in and around or outside of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Now we've had you on, so it'll be cool to meet you in person. But thank you ever so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
And enjoy the rest of your time in Jacksonville.
Yeah, fly back on Sunday. So got a few things to do here. Enjoy the game, and then back to. Is it raining there, or probably is?
It's nice. It's nice at the minute. It's okay. It's nice.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll soon see. But catch up in London, and I'll see you there.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to move on. We're just going to finish off the rest of our episode by previewing our last team, which I believe is the Tennessee Titans, and following up and then following up with the rest of our season bets.
Cool. Thank you.
On to the final team in our AFC South preview, and we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans. No guests for this one. It's me, Byron, and Joe. Talking about the Tennessee Titans. So let's just get straight into it. Let's have a look at the Titans 2023 season overview. 6-11 for bottom of the division, 4th in the AFC South. Mike Vrabel looking sad there. Changing of the guard at QB as Tanner over the hill. He was replaced by second rounder Will Levis. Offensive struggles for the Titans, 17.9 points per game, which ranked 27th in the league, 28th in total offensive yards, and 29th in passing offense. Season highlight, it ended. Also stopped the Jags getting into the playoffs with a Week 18 win. Joe, how would you sum up the 2023 season for the Tennessee Titans?
Disappointing. I would say disaster, just because how they've been in that division the last few years. You expected them to challenge and to show out, but it was a bit just putrid. It was just, when you look at them offensive struggles, they also had the worst offensive line ranking as well. And, Tannehill going out injured, and, we got some promising from Will Levis, but it just felt a meh kind of year. And, I'm guessing they were all happy that the season had finished because to get over the struggle, which was 2023.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before about the Mayo Bridge man, Charlie Smith, having a good preseason game there for the Saints. Well, the Mayo man, Will Levis, certainly had a great start to life in the NFL. Yeah, it was a reach, that link, Byron. And it was certainly, he had that four touchdown game, didn't he? And he was throwing them beautiful moon balls deep moon balls down the field, and you thought, hang on, they might be onto something. And he did have kind of some other bright spots as well. But in the main, they just really, really struggled offensively, kind of right at the bottom of the league for that. And there's been a lot of change in Tennessee this offseason. Let's get to those offseason headlines. Bad mic check in Tennessee. Vrabel, a surprise Black Monday victim. Brian Callahan in as a first-time head coach, brings father, O-line guru, legendary coach Bill Callahan in with him. Is that the biggest acquisition of the Tennessee Titans off-season? The king is dead. Long live the king. Henry gone, but reinforcements arrive on offense and defense. And with the draft and free agency, is this a rebuild year or can they contend? Talked a little bit about how the offensive, how they struggled offensively in Nashville. Some key moves, I talked about, they brought Tony Pollard in from the Cowboys, running back. Calvin Ridley came in, wide receiver. So they moved for DeAndre Hopkins last year. Tyler Boyd's come in. Has that got the makings of an offense that could be more productive, Byron, for the Titans than what 2023 was?
Yeah, definitely it does have, yeah. I think Pollard and Spears are a nice combo. And again, Hopkins has got an injury, which is going to hold him back to start the season. But I think Ridley and Hopkins is a nice 1-2 punch, certainly. And I do struggle with this thing of, is it a rebuild or can they contend? Yeah, and Tyler Boyd obviously in as a slot receiver as well. Like, it's obviously a much better looking group than last year. I really struggle with seeing them get into like playoff football though. So kind of like, what's it all for? It's so short term, it seems like. But I think on paper it's certainly improved. Just how much is it improved relative to the rest of the division and the rest of the AFC is a big question.
I think, isn't it more with the players they brought in, and obviously the offensive linemen they brought in and they drafted last year, and with JC Latham as well. Is it more of a year saying like, let's have a real look at Levis. Let's see if he's actually the quarterback for the future. Because I think a lot of quarterbacks can look good on a bad team where you're like, oh, there's promise here. Yeah. But can he continue that? People have got tape on him now. So it feels like they've actually put the squad around him for them to decide where they want to go. Because there's nothing worse with if they had like another bad year and he has a middling kind of year and you're like, well, if he had a better team, he would. And then, you're 4 years in and saying like, oh, okay, we got to start again because this guy is not the quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think they've done well in terms of giving him everything he needs. Obviously, Vrabel going was, I think, it's a surprise to all of us. And, maybe he's, too big to be in that room and any other head coach. Everyone's scared of him. But getting an offensive coordinator in, getting, like we mentioned, the guru offensive line, which was their biggest issue last year. Callahan's coming from the Bengals, so can he do something similar like he's brought Boyd in? Can he do something like what he did for Joe Burrows in kind of scheme? I think that makes this year actually interesting. I think, like we mentioned at the intro, is like, I didn't think much of the Titans. And when I was like doing this research, it was like, oh, it's actually a fun team. And that, there's going to be some stories coming from this. So yes, I'm curious, Paul, from your point of view, like, first off, why do you think they got rid of Vrabel? And is Brian Callahan the answer if he's probably the number 2 behind Zach Taylor for the Bengals? So are they actually bringing in one of the masterminds like some of the teams?
Yeah, the Vrabel one, again, was a bit of a shock to me that, again, he's been so good for them. And I think he is one of the better head coaches in the NFL. I just think maybe it was just something has to change. It's time he'd been there. I think, was it 7 years with the Titans Vrabel had? And maybe it was just getting a bit stale. Maybe the messages just didn't land quite like they used to. And I think kind of it was a team ready to turn over. So it just seemed an opportunity for the kind of, well, we'll revamp the revamp the coaching staff as well. So yeah, I think just something needed to change. It just got a bit stale in Tennessee. And I think, to be fair, Vrabel had a bit, a lot of bad luck the last few years. Talk about kind of teams getting injured. I don't think I can remember as a team a team more than the Titans suffering with injuries. What did they use in, was it 2022 or 23, a record 93 players on the roster? It was something insane, mid to late 90s in terms of number of players they had to use because of injuries. So yeah, I just think something had to change, and sadly, that was Vrabel going, and yeah, again, same as you, I just astounded that nobody else picked him up.
And a long, chain event is if they just paid AJ Brown and not drafted Treylon Burks, how much better the last few years have been. Out of his hands.
Yeah, could have been
and I think
very, very different for the time.
Yeah, and I think because they got the new GM last year as well, it felt like they just didn't click, and it sounded like he'd run out of rope in terms of with the owners and whatnot. So, yeah, I think it's a brand new. But I also do like the of getting Snead in from the Chiefs. Obviously, I think that's a big piece, and someone who can change that culture. I think with defenses, you can turn that around a lot quicker, and it can be year to year. So getting players in like that can help. It's just, is it enough in this division and in the AFC where can they actually go? I think like what Byron said, I'd be surprised if they made the playoffs. But it could also be like one of them random teams, like the Steelers have made the playoffs the last few years. Could they like win 9 games somehow? Win game here and there. Will Levis has progressed. That all lines is improved with that weapons. It just makes it more fun. I think they got a bit stale, and they got rid of some of the old guard like with Tannehill and Derrick Henry. So it should be interesting with them weapons, because like I said, the 1-2 punch running back, and then a strong 1 to 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at some of those moves, Joe. Key moves for the Titans. Talked about a couple of them already, but additions: Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Tyler Boyd, L'Jarius Sneed, the trade with the Chiefs. Jamal Adams has recently come in as well. And Tannehill went, Derrick Henry went, Brewer went, Taylor Lewan retired, didn't he? As well. Suffered kind of another nasty knee injury, and that's him gone as well. So, yeah, some interesting moves there. And again, I think what they've done with Levis, particularly the wide receiver, they've just got they're just the pros. They are reliable, might not be ones that, do extraordinary things, but I think Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd is a real solid 1-2-3, especially if Hopkins can stay injury free. I know he's injured right now, so I might have to start the season, but if he can stay injury free, we saw kind of in fits and spurts last year. He still had some magic in him. So yeah.
And they've also brought in like Cushenberry at centre, Joseph Day, Kenneth Murray, Awuzie. So they brought some, like you said, some solid players on that defense as well, along with Mason Rudolph as well to be the backup. So that'll be interesting to see if Levis dips and whatnot. And yeah, when you look at the players they've lost, it's like, it's not crazy. You know what I mean? It's not like where they're going to go. I think Tannehill was passed in. It's really on the Derrick Henry one. I know Aaron Brewer had a decent year, but he was the best offensive lineman on the worst offensive line. So I don't know how good that is, to be honest.
Not just the players on the offensive line that are important, is it? It's like it is absolutely the coach, Bill Callahan coming in, very important in terms of improving that whole line. He's got 2 big first-round picks on it now in Skoronowski and JC Latham. And they're going to need those guys to perform really, really well. I think it seems to be that Skoronowski is going to be kicked inside, being a kind of guard, while Latham's going to be the tackle. Rest of the draft, what did you make of the rest of the Titans draft?
I mean, I felt at the time that DeFondre Sweat was a huge reach. He needs to get himself in football shape. I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity because he went so early in that second round. The rest, truthfully, I'm not going to say I know too much about the later round picks. I thought Latham was a really solid one, though. Obviously, if you can't get Joel, take Latham and have a really solid tackle. But yeah, I felt like Sweat was a bit of a luxury pick for a team who, again, I don't really think they're in the position to do so. It's gambling a lot on him hitting football shape and sticking to football shape, which he hasn't really shown that he's going to do. So, yeah, if he hits, he could be a real good DT, but I'm not convinced by it, truthfully.
Big chap, for sure, Devondre Sweat. So I had a lot of interest in during the draft, but yeah, he's 6'4", 360 plus pounds.
Yeah.
Big dude.
Frees up Simmons, and I guess, pays off, but I don't love it.
Let's. What would be a good season for the Titans, given 6-11 last year? What would be good season for the Titans in 2024?
I think, like I said, competing. Levis showing that I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but could he get to like the 12-14 mark and just be like a Tannehill, basically? I never felt like Tannehill was like, oh, he's a top 10 kind of quarterback. He might have them moments, he might have them streaks, but his overall game. So can he be that kind of player? And like I said, with this AFC, if they win 8 or 9 wins, they could be in a shout. They finished last year, so I'm guessing the schedule is not as hard as someone like the Texans, who we've talked about. So it's certainly for them to compete, and I think that's like the good year. And I'll just answer quickly, like the bad year would be like if the Will Levis bottoms out and you're back to square one of the quarterback.
Yeah. Right. Let's have a look then, Joe. Let's see some odds. Let's see some lines. This is what we're all about. Over under 6.5, a fair line? Do you think?
I think that's about right, yeah. I have them under it, but I wouldn't be stunned if they get to 6-7, so I don't think it's asking a huge amount. And they are built, like we say, a lot of them pieces are more win now than rebuild pieces. So, they should probably be expecting to go to 7 at least.
Yeah. I've got them at 4 wins, 4-13, which is a shame. Yeah, bottom dwelling in the AFC South. Joe, where do you see? Where have you got them? How many wins do you think the Titans have got in them?
Yeah, I think 6. I think they'll get to 6. I think there's quite a lot of games where it's like a coin toss when you're looking at the schedule. Teams when they play like the Vikings, the Commanders, even the Jags. I think it's like a coin toss where they could eke them victories out. So I've got them at 6 wins. So we should be under, but it's not too far off the over. So I think it'll be close.
So yeah, the 4-1 to make the playoffs. So a bit of a long shot to make the playoffs in the AFC. 9-1 to win the division. You might as well take them as that if you're going to get in the playoffs, I guess. Conference winners, 80-1 and 150-1 shot at making the Super Bowl. So a bit of a quick pit stop view of the Tennessee Titans, just because we have no guests, so apologies, any Tennessee Titans fans. If you are Tennessee Titans fans, and, from the UK, give us a shout. Good to have a UK-based Tennessee Titans fan to talk Titans with. And I've said Titans too many times in a very short period of time. The world has lost all meaning. And we're going to finish off our episode with a look at our podium bets. The Olympics has just ended, but we're going to carry on our podium bets because it's been an Olympic year. What an Olympic Games it was. But let's have a look at our podium bets. AFC South, Colts, for me, with my bronze bet, Colts have the team with the most sacks at 22-1 or plus 2,200. Colts had a franchise best 51 sacks last year. You need to get somewhere in and around 60 sacks to be the team with the most sacks in the NFL. That's been the number the last few years. I think it was the Ravens last year with exactly 60. They brought in Latu with the first defensive pick in the NFL draft, who should be expected to deliver some decent sack numbers. And hopefully then the rest of the D-line and linebackers carry that on. But it is a long shot, 22-1. I like Colts team with the most sacks. Titans' worst regular season record. I've got the Titans, the Buccaneers, and who else have I got? I've got the Panthers all kind of around each other at three or 4 wins. But Titans with the worst regular season record, plus 900. We'll just talk through. I'm not big on them. I think, Vrabel's worth a few, Vrabel's worth 2 or 3 wins himself, and they'll have to let him go. I think this might be a struggle. And then my gold bet, Joe Mixon over 1,000 rushing yards at plus 190, so much shorter odds bet. But we saw Mixon manage to get to that total with the Bengals last year and the offensive struggles that they had with injuries and inconsistent quarterback play and all that jazz. Joe Mixon plus 190. Thoughts on the podium bets for me?
I love that bronze bet. I think that's a real smart one. 22-1 on the Colts, who, like you said, added one of the best pass rushers in the league in the draft. Sorry. Titans one I think is intriguing. I have them at 4 wins as well. I struggle to see them totally collapsing, but if Will Levis isn't it, then it's certainly in play. So, yeah, it's not one I looked up, but I don't hate it, certainly. I hadn't thought about it that badly, but I mean, I do have them at 4 wins as well, so I obviously don't love them.
Joe?
Yeah, I don't mind that. Joe, only one I would have that Joe Mixon one, because obviously he's just got back to practice now, and you do with that a running back of his age. Can he stay fit? He's not been fit all pre-season, so he's going to be able to get to scratch. And, you know, Damian Pierce is not a bad number 2, so I think it's going to be close. It's just, can he stay fit? Which has been a bit in and out. But yeah, I like the other 2. Like the Colts we've talked about, it's basically got the same team now and added an extra pass rusher, so gives them a chance when other teams have lost players while they've managed to gain. Yeah, good picks.
Yeah. Excellent. Byron, let's have a look at yours then.
Anthony Richardson, comeback player of the year, plus 650. Shone in his brief moments last year. He's coming back from an injury, which the NFL have made it clear is the criteria for the award now, after years of no one knowing what it means. I think if he plays 17 games, I think he's a great value here. The obvious thing is, will he play 17 games? But I think at plus 650, I'd take that bet, yeah. Colts and Texans to make the playoffs. I think on paper, both teams are kind of a cut above the rest of the division. That's at plus 266, just over 2.5 to 1. And Calvin Ridley over 1,000 receiving yards at plus 200, 2 to 1. Again, no DeAndre Hopkins to start the season, and he's obviously getting older. I think him and Hopkins are going to dominate targets in that attack. And he had a bit of a down year last year, but he still got over 800 yards. I think Ridley's a really good receiver most of the time. And I think he'll get over 1,000.
Excellent. So yeah, the sound went a bit funny there. Sorry, Byron. Yeah,
I couldn't tell if that was someone reacting to the Calvin Ridley bet or if the sound went funny.
Yeah,
it was a weird noise.
It's like, apologies, the audio was a bit inconsistent in this episode. Yeah, I like them. Yeah, I think solid. Richardson, I think the comeback player of the year is tough because obviously the favourite and who it is.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, like there's 4 quarterbacks at the top of the market, and Richardson's the longest odds of them. So you've got Cousins, Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers. I think Richardson can kind of outplay and outshine Rodgers and Cousins. I think it's just Burrows and Richardson are the 2 big ones to me of, you know, and Richardson missed more time. And I think he can make more of a splash impact, whereas we already know what Joe Burrow is. Not to say that makes it less likely that he's coming back, because he's still coming back from missing time last year. But Richardson, it could be like a breakout season where like he captures more of the hearts and minds. Was kind of my thought process there.
Excellent.
Yeah, the bronze and silver are similar to some of my bets. I do like the Ridley one. I just read about like Tyler Boyd coming from the Bengals. Will he get a high percentage? But I think if Ridley plays all 17, then he's going to be there and thereabouts. So plus 200, I think it's good odds.
Excellent.
So mine. So similar. My bronze one, Anthony Richardson, most rushing touchdown by a QB. So it's at plus 350. I believe he's the 3rd favorite. I think Hurts and I can't remember who's second. I know Lamar Jackson's 4th, but he's Josh Allen's 2nd. So Anthony Richardson. So if he has a big year, I think he could get a lot of rushing touchdowns similar to what Josh Allen does, where you don't really want him out of the pocket because that's where he got injured last year. But it feels like he's just that kind of quarterback. He's that big that it feels like it's him against the world, and he's going to crash in there. So, and if the tush push is not what it used to be, then Anthony Richardson could certainly get up there. My silver is the Colts just to win the division at plus 320. I really like these odds. I'm a big Colts fan this year. I think it's going to be close between them and the Texans. So with them odds, I think it's going to be similar to last year where it's, you know, toss a coin, last play of the game. That kind of the games against each other is huge. And I just like the consistency. And if Anthony Richardson stays fit, I think, I don't think he's going to be at CJ Stroud level, but I don't think he's going to be that far away if if he plays how he played the first, couple of games. So I think that's a shout. And we've talked about the Texans' schedule as well being a lot tougher. And then finally, it was the top two teams being Texans and Colts, so similar to Byron's silver one, but this is at plus 200 for them two to finish the top two. So now I've seen Byron's silver one. You get a little bit more money there, but top two, if one of them doesn't make the playoffs, so you can get plus 200, so could always double up there. But yeah, I think similar. I think the Jags are going to take a step back, and the two teams are the class above the other ones.
Interesting thoughts, Byron?
Unsurprisingly, I like all three. All three kind of similar to my silver and bronze ones, yeah. So I like all of them, yeah. I mean, I do think the Texans are going to win the division, but I think the Colts at plus 320 is a real nice price because, like I said, I think they're both making the playoffs, so there's probably not be too much between them.
I think it's real good value. Like, see, that went down to, as Joe mentioned, the fight, pretty much the final play of week 18 between the Texans and Colts last year.
And that was with Gardner Minshew.
And that was with Gardner Minshew.
For the vast majority.
Yeah. It was real close. They were neck and neck all season long. So, yeah, plus, 3-1, plus 320. Great bet. I think it's good value. Be interesting to see how it goes. Right, gents, that brings us to the end of our AFC South episode. Quick finish this week. Thanks to our guests this week for coming representing your teams. I've got one quick shout out, conscious we're short of time, but the Great Britain women's American football team play on Saturday. They play their final game of the European Championships. They play Finland. It's at Sixfields Rugby Stadium in Worcester. I think it's £11 to get in. So if you're around or you can travel there, I think we might be going. It's a couple of hours away from where we are. But if you're around that area, get yourself down. It's £11. They've had a real good campaign. They were unlucky to get beat by Spain late on, who've won the European Championships. Finland are a real good team. GB are a real good team. Go support our regular guest Bethany Pilkington. She'll be playing linebacker for the GB Lions. And you'll have a great summer's afternoon of entertainment. And also a quick shout out to Dockers' team, the Yorkshire Rams, and also Beth's team. She's not been playing too much for those that make some other commitments, but they're continuing on in the Brit Ball playoffs. They had a great win up in Glasgow this week. They go to Nottingham Caesars in a couple of weeks' time in the next round of the playoffs, which is in essence a conference championship game that will get them into a championship game. So best of luck to the Yorkshire Rams. But that's it from us. As always, go follow Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, GTWGT_GTC. And yeah, follow along for a lot more content. These social media channels will be a lot busier as we head to the season. But thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.